Hello, Megan, Dan, and boardroom guest. Dave Howard here.
Good morning, Supervisor Howard.
And there's no snow, so there's like,
Start pushing that, so it's a good one there. No, I wouldn't say the other same. I was just
Jackie, do you know the 559 number? Is that one of the board members? It's a lot.
Full fire hydrant thing they talk about.
It is, and fortunately, good enough.
It is somebody on our board list.
Yeah.
But the name is.
The game, we're starting to play some players, right? Still, everything is bigger and more complex.
I mean, how many?
Right. I'm starting my 7th year.
Okay, so we're the same.
Yeah. We got to run for next, I usually know.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get the march on.
Oh, is that right? So we put push last time, we can run every portfolio, right? And but it's like, get started at 5:30. Yeah. But then we're trying to make that. That's right. That's right. Walking precincts after dinner. I was there one more time. Good. Good. Mostly, yeah. Did you have an incumbent in first race or was it about the same? Okay. Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was. Okay. Oh, sure. And Josh is son in District 2, District 1, and he's on well. Okay.
This is Vito. I'm only going to be in listening mode today.
Good morning.
And you turn the camera off, please. That's good.
I think Jackie's in this call.
So there's a couple of kids that are very entrenched in their position, or there's a couple of us that are right out the middle. And so I guess.
He does his job well. We all try to push you, it's fun. I like to see. I always try to do the right thing.
I think you're pushing a little bit.
Yeah.
Find a way to get. Find a way.
He just shifts,
Oh, he's got to do it.
but you know what?
Gotta work on it. He's getting close to retirement, so he gets the dream. That's true. Jackie, are we good with the quorum?
We have 6 members. Nancy Young should be here too. We do have a quorum, but we do not have 7 members for the business permit.
That's okay. So we'll monitor that, although we do not have our Antioch folks here yet. And do you see them on Zoom?
Maybe got behind that one bridge.
Possibly. Was Mayor Thorpe planning on being here?
Yeah.
Oh, so he may have not tried.
Those, that series of items is supposed to go on the agenda. That we wanted to proceed and then, we had
would have to, item 4, which is the business plan, we have to wait till the end to set,
Right.
but we could move on to 5.
Which Wi-Fi do I wanna get into?
The staff Wi-Fi?
This one? Oh, staff.
Let's see what it says.
Doing this too.
Okay. And the password will be,
Everybody can hear you, by the way, on the meeting.
oh, right, because I'm not.
Share mine with you.
Okay, so
There, your own house.
Sure. Oh, you gave me the password?
You have an Apple product.
Okay. Wow, that was pretty impressive.
Apple product communicate with other Apple products, so you asked Mike machine to have a password, and I said, yes.
Okay,
Not what you know.
well, you have computer skills on top of everything else.
Oh, you have that so terribly.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
oh,
I sure find.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
And one day soon, we'll just have Chat GPT chair the meeting and.
To me, that they may be able to track this location. Sure. Where's your gas team? Where's your gas team?
I stepped at start. I ordered it. They do that now, and pulled over. Those girls.
We get spoiled quickly with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you know, I didn't know how long it's gonna be.
Access denied. I don't want to join the meeting.
Sorry.
So why don't we open up the agenda packet, is that?
Megan's right behind you.
Oh. Yeah.
This is a cool building.
we have, paper copies of it.
Okay. That's what I want to.
SD and UP merged. Oh, he's got it here.
Oh, is he?
This was an SP building, so Union Pacific, we don't want that. So they wanted to tear it down, because why would you keep an old SP? And so, yeah, years ago, we went.
Good stuff. Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure, thank you, appreciate it.
The thing you really have to see at some point is the maintenance facility, which doesn't sound like much, but it is an astonishing.
Where is that?
It's about a mile and a half long. It is really, it's a new job base for all kinds of Tamika's, Track C, Rail Academy, a lot of work on the state roads. Yeah, did her eyes just like that. Not a good cook.
We have a form, but we don't have enough for an item, is that correct?
We have 7 members, we have.
That's really sad.
All right, well, good morning. Go ahead and call to order the regular board meeting of the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority for Friday, March 24th, 2023. And we'll begin with a roll call, please.
Good morning, directors. Kiesa he let us know he would not be able to participate this morning. Gonzalez let us know she would not be on. Alternate Rodriguez.
Here. So we're not able to hear.
Yeah, we're not hearing anything from the boardroom.
Yeah, I'm not hearing anything, and the transcript is coming along, but
Yeah, this is Supervisor Quintero. I can't hear anything either.
I'm texting Stacy right now.
Here for Verboen.
Chuck Lima's here.
Hello, are you able to hear us from the boardroom?
Yes, we can now.
Yeah, if you could make it a little bit louder. This is Supervisor Quintero from Fresno.
yeah, I agree. You're very soft on that voice, so please either get closer to the mic or we got to increase that volume.
Okay,
Talk louder.
Yeah, the mic is in the middle of the room, so we'll do our best to speak up and project. The good news is the only thing we've done so far is call the meeting to order. We started in on the roll call. Maybe we'll back up and repeat that.
I'll circle back. Halbert? Director Halbert? Shipley.
Here.
We can't hear you we cannot hear you again.
Vice Chair Verboen?
I'm here.
And Chair Hugh?
I am here.
We do have a forum.
Okay, great. Would you please join Director Ferguson?
Excuse me. I'm Supervisor Quintero. I didn't hear my name called, but I'm here.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's hope that our audio holds out. We will move on now to public comments. This is for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone in chambers or online that would like to comment on something that is not agendized?
Yes, Doug Kerr would like to make a public comment.
Very good. Mr. Kerr, you have the floor.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Doug Kerr, Rail Passengers Association of California, or RailPAC. I wanted to comment this morning once again regarding the proposed downgraded vending machine food service on the San Joaquin Venture equipment. In past public comment, I've mentioned problems with keeping the food area clean. In other words, who is going to clean up spilled coffee? I've also expressed that San Joaquin Valley residents should not have to be subjected to cold vending food, while more affluent areas of the state served by the Capitol Corridor and Surfliner get staffed cafe cars, hot food items, and alcohol. Today, I wanted to add yet another issue. If the sole purpose of the San Joaquins is to provide basic transportation to those who can't afford a car or for some reason can't drive a car, then vending machines might be acceptable. If, however, a purpose of the train is to get travelers to leave their car at home and take the train to reduce vehicle miles traveled, reduce greenhouse gases, and reduce traffic congestion on Highway 99, then the train must compete with the automobile. The train is already at a competitive disadvantage because of fixed schedules and first and last mile issues. However, if I drive on Highway 99, I have a choice of literally hundreds of restaurants and fast food places that can serve me a hot meal. Cold vending machine sandwiches on the San Joaquins simply provide yet another reason to drive and does not provide an environment conducive to growing ridership and reducing highway congestion. This decision to use vending machines certainly needs to be rethought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kerr, and stick around because we apparently will address this issue somewhat under item number 12, the service update. Do we have any other speakers wishing to speak?
Michael Barnbaum has his hand raised.
Mr. Barnbaum, good morning.
Good morning, Chair Hume and members. Is my audio okay?
We hear you loud and clear, sir.
Okay, thank you. Just double checking that. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. March signals the beginning of the Major League Baseball 162 game regular season. And once again, we have a repeat event coming for this season and another special event. On Sunday, August 6th, the San Francisco Giants and Oakland Athletics play each other in the Bay Bridge series. And that game is at 1:07 p.m. That would be a great opportunity for folks to take train 711 and train 718 round trip to the Coliseum Station, if approved by the Union Pacific, of course, and enjoy some action between the Bay Area baseball teams. Again, Sunday, August 6th at 1:07 p.m. Another special event is happening this season. For folks that ride the San Joaquin to Bakersfield and the thruway bus to Los Angeles Union Station, baseball fans can connect to the Dodger Stadium Express and can witness the retirement ceremony of Fernando Valenzuela on Saturday, August 12th. The Los Angeles Dodgers are playing the Colorado Rockies at 6:10 p.m. Train 702 and train 710 are great options for fans to connect at Bakersfield to get to Los Angeles Union Station and take the Dodger Stadium Express to the game and return following the game to northbound 711, getting back to the Bay Area and Sacramento the following morning without the need of a hotel in Los Angeles. So what a great way to see a Dodger legend getting his number retired this summer and taking the San Joaquins to get there. And that concludes my baseball and rail marketing update for the 2023 Major League Baseball season. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Okay, any other non-agendized comments?
Kevin with the city of Oakley had his hand raised.
Item number 8.
Oh, this is someone else. Rohani?
Yeah.
Yes, this is Kevin Rohani, City of Oakley Public Works. I just want to mention, we haven't been able to get copy of the agenda from your website. That link is not coming up, and whenever the item regarding the station in Oakley comes, I'd like to speak. I just want to let the board know. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. I had a problem with that link as well. The item will be item number 8. Will be the discussion on Antioch presentation.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, if that concludes public comments for items not on the agenda, we will move on to item number 3. Anybody online? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
All right, motion from Espinoza, second from Burgess. I assume because we are hybrid, we still have to do a roll call?
Yes.
Very good.
Directors, alternate Rodriguez. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Burgess.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Supervisor Shiplian. Young. Yes. Vice Chair Espinoza.
Yes.
Vice Chair Verboen.
Yes.
And Chair Hugh.
Aye. All right, on to our first action item on the agenda, item number 4, approve a resolution of the governing board of the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority approving the draft 2023 San Joaquin JPA business plan update of the president directing the executive director to execute any and all documents associated with the master fund transfer agreement supplements for operations, administration, and marketing budget fiscal year 2023-2024. Mr. Levitt.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Chair Hume, members of the board. If you could go to the next slide, please. As noted, this is item is for the approval of the draft 2023 JPA business plan. We do this every year. The business plan for you to be able to continue to manage the San Joaquins, we need to submit the business plan, which is due in draft form on April 1st to CalSTA. It's due in final form on June 30th to CalSTA. This action item does require 2/3 of the JPA board members to vote in favor for it to pass. If you go to the next slide. At your last board meeting, I did do a presentation on this. This is an update for the 2022 business plan. I did go through some of the continued areas of focus as well as some of the changes. I'm going to go through those more quickly today. Like your other business plans in the past, this business plan includes updated ridership and financial numbers. Similar to the 2022 business plan, it has focuses on a discussion of the impacts related to COVID-19 and plans to reintroduce the 7th daily round trip. Also, it continues to focus on the coordination with the High-Speed Rail Authority and the early operating segment that they're working towards. The MITSI project, which is the key project to connect the San Joaquins to high-speed rail at Merced, and our progress on that effort, as well as efforts towards a Madera high-speed rail station. We also discussed the deployment of a new throughway bus route, Route 40, between Merced and San Jose, and that would be implemented once the 7th daily round trip is reintroduced. And we also focus on our continued efforts to support the development of the Cross Valley Rail Corridor. Next slide. Some of the changes, we have some additions from the 2022 business plan and also some subtractions. Again, these were presented at your previous board meeting, but I'm just going to quickly go through some of these key additions and subtractions. This business plan it has an additional highlight in it where we have entered into an agreement for doing the annual maintenance for the state-owned venture cars. And so we added into this fiscal year 2023, 2024, an amount of $5.3 million request to be able to cover that activity. We provided additional details for the expanded Valley Rail program planning activities to be able to provide additional San Joaquin service to connect with high-speed rail's early operating segment by the time that begins operations. We added a discussion of the Federal Railroad Administration's Corridor ID program and our intentions to partner with Caltrans on an application, and also highlighted the JPA's participation in a project study report being led by Caltrans that could enable additional San Joaquins round trips to be turned at Martinez or additional capital corridor round trips to be turned at Martinez. Next slide. Some of the areas of subtraction from the 2022 business plan. We did in the 2022 business plan and this one, we do have strategies for reducing travel times for the San Joaquins, but we have eliminated some of those that were previously in the 2022 business plan based on the presentation that you had at your last board meeting. This included eliminating the skip stop service alternatives and terminating all or some of the trains at Emeryville. Next slide. And then in addition, there was a part of the business plan in 2022 in chapter 4 that was called Studies of New Proposals. These proposals actually weren't new proposals. They were proposed back in 2017 and 2018. We did eliminate that section. One of the proposals was for limited stop service, but we're not looking to move forward with looking at skip stop. And then two of the other proposals are things we are moving forward with, dealing with the new bus service between Merced and San Jose, and also looking at future San Joaquin service or intercity service on the Altamont corridor. Next slide. The draft document was released to the public on March 3rd. on our website. Notifications to our stakeholders were sent out, to both of our stakeholder lists as well as to social media. Since that time, we've had a meeting and gotten comments from the San Joaquin Valley Rail Committee at their March 7th meeting, and gotten comments from a couple of members of the public as well that were included in your board packet. The Rail Committee is supportive of the draft and the programs proposed, but did provide some input that was included in your board packet, and I'm going to go through briefly with you if you move to the next slide. There was a considerable amount of discussion on cafe cars and vending machines. The Rail Committee did propose and encourage cafe car service on the new venture car equipment. They raised operational and passenger experience concerns about the vending machine solutions. They did encourage improved cafe car service on current equipment and did suggest additional and continued outreach, looking at opportunities for promoting local items, either in the existing cafe cars or on vending machines. Let's go to the next slide. The committee stated that use of the transfer, if there was a Martinez transfer station, should be considered only for additional San Joaquin service, which is consistent with what we have in the business plan. They expressed interest in encouraging bus-only ticketing for the new Route 40, which again, we've already approved the ability to do that once the line comes on. And they did suggest trying to expand upon the bus-only ticketing that we're already offering throughout our throughway bus network. Next slide. They encouraged the JPA to work with the state to ensure that San Joaquin riders in the future, once high-speed rail early operating segment is in operations, would be able to continue to have low fares, and noting that a large majority of the San Joaquin passengers are low-income passengers and have relied on the San Joaquins for many years. They did also request to have a venture car equipment ADA accessibility presentation made to them at their next meeting in June. Go to the next slide. And then in terms of fiscal impact with the draft, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, this, approving the draft is a requirement for continuing to manage the service. Go to the next slide. And we are recommending that you approve the resolution that was in your board packet that would enable us to move forward with submitting the draft business plan to CalSTA by April 1st. And open to any questions. And before open, I did just want to mention that putting this draft together is a team effort. And in particular, I wanted to highlight and thank David LaPerry and Angela Miller for their efforts on this as well.
Great, thank you. I'll go ahead and start here in the room. Are there any questions of Dan at this point? No? Okay, anybody, any of the board members online have any questions about this item? Okay, hearing none. How about members of the public? Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on the business plan update?
Michael Barnbaum has his hand raised.
Mr. Barnbaum, welcome back. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Hume, members. Yeah, I did have a question. There were talking points made a few times about the reintroduction of the 7th round trip. Now that this is being presented for approval today, is there an agreed upon schedule change date coming up, which is better forecasted right now for the reintroduction of the 7th round trip? I hope that this would be something that has had discussions with Amtrak and their crew and their union, and folks can begin planning for the anticipation of this to happen and return to the full schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other comments from the public?
There are no other comments.
Okay, in that case, we'll close public comments. Dan, did you have an update you can provide? I know we had the 7th round trip for a hot minute and then it went away.
It's in the business plan. We in the business plan we say fall 2023.
Okay. Let's hope that.
Tamika can give you
Great.
Yes, so we are meeting with Amtrak.
Would you just state your name for the
Oh, sorry,
phone?
Tamika Smith, the Director of Rail Service.
Thank you.
So we are meeting with Amtrak on Monday to have talks, to start talks for the 7th round trip.
Great. All right, well, hopefully we'll have that all ironed out by the fall. Okay, thank you. This does require a supermajority of the board, as I understand it. We do have sufficient numbers to make that happen. All right, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Motion. All right, great. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor are actually roll call, please.
Directors, alternate Rodriguez,
Yes.
Albert,
Apologies, yes, it's hard to hear. Sometimes the mic goes in and out. I don't know if you can, anyway, fix that, but yeah, sorry for the delay and I vote yes.
We can't hear Jackie.
Supervisor Quintero,
Supervisor.
Yes.
Hernandez-Thorpe.
A little puppy?
Hi, George. Yeah. Supervisor Shooklian,
Aye.
What about,
Hang on.
your neighbor across the street?
Hang on.
Vice Boone,
Yes.
Sorry, I tried turning on the mic on the computer. That made it worse. You don't know until you try sometimes.
I do think your tone is, because it seems to pick up the lower tones fine, but the higher tones, I think it's having trouble.
Chair Hume.
You have a voice made for radio, but not for fancy speakers, apparently. I am an aye, please.
Motion carried.
Thank you so much. On to item number 5, approve a resolution of the governing board of the San Joaquin JPA approving amendment 1 to the agreement with ACOM Technical Services, Inc. for project development services for the Madera Station relocation project for an amount not to exceed $433,800 and authorizing the executive director to execute any and all documents related to the project, including approving any and all amendments thereto within her spending authority.
Thank you,
Mr.
board
Fair.
members. Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, members of the board. Next slide, please. A little background. Here is a map of the area. The yellow dot you see before you is the existing Madera station. You can see the north-seeking arrow to the top right of the map. So as you look at this picture or map, due north is as you see it. At the bottom right, in the purple dot, you can see is the proposed relocation of the Madera station. And the Madera City Hall is center left of this map. Next slide, please. The Madera station relocation has 4 definable features of work. The first definable feature of work is shown in the second bullet, is the relocation of the existing station. The second definable feature of work, also shown in the second bullet, is building a station platform that is approximately 600 feet long. The third definable feature of work, as shown in the third bullet, is a new siding track that would tie into the BNSF main line. And the fourth definable feature of work of this project is a new access road to provide access to the station and also to run adjacent to California high-speed rail. Next slide, please. Additional background information. In September 2021, the board authorized an agreement with AECOM Technical Services for $1,433,924 for project for PS&E. In the second bullet, you can see this design estimate contract was based on 60% for station design and 30% design for the track and platform work. Again, this contract was only for 60% design for the station and 30% for track work and platform design. In accordance with the third bullet, it did not include the cost to complete the final design. And I want to highlight that this is not a bad thing. The reason the contract was let out this way is funding was limited and it allowed the project to proceed in a timely manner. By going into this contract, we were able to do the 60% design for the station and the 30% design for the track work and keep the project on schedule and also prevent cost escalation in construction in the outer years because construction are the cost drivers. So this is the first amendment to the agreement for this contract. And again, this is not an increase in scope or any overruns. Now the funding is available. We want to take the design to 100%. Next slide, please. The procurement approach. This first amendment with AECom will increase the $1,433,924 contract by $443,800 and bring the total amount for a not to exceed amount of $1,867,724. The effective date of this contract will be today with an end date of June 30th, 2026. Next slide, please. Before you, you see the fiscal impact. If you look at the funding sources for this amendment is State Rail Assistant, SRA funding, and TIRSIP funding. If you go to the bottom of this slide, you can see even if this amendment is approved, after this amendment is approved, we would still have over $633,000 available in this project line number. So funding is, contingency is there. Next slide, please. We recommend the board approve the amendment with AECom Technical Services for a not to exceed amount of $433,800. We are happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Farrell. Any questions of staff at this point? How about online? Does anybody online have any questions on this item?
Yes, I have a question. This is alternate City Council Member Rodriguez. Mr. Farrell, I had a question in regards to the anticipated decommissioning of the current location. I know that we have 60% of the design. Do we have an updated date of when we're anticipating on opening this new station?
Yes, sir, we do. I do not have that available, but we do have a tentative opening date. We'd be happy to get with you, get you that very shortly after this meeting, sir.
And as you'll have an opening date, you'll also have a decommissioning date for the current existing location. If you can provide that for us as well, that'd be great.
Yes, sir, we can provide both those dates. They're somewhat simultaneous. You have to commission the new station, get that into service, and then you decommission the old one. But yes, we can provide that to you. Yes, sir.
And if you don't mind, what's the lag time there between the decommissioning and the opening of the new station?
Well, obviously the new station has to be commissioned before it's operational. Decommissioning is so that's a hard deadline. The decommissioning is actually a little more nebulous, on such that when you decommission a station, there could be some environmental impacts, right? You have to potentially demolition it. When you demolition it, you may have to take certain materials away. So as far as service goes, as soon as the new as far as service goes, when the new service is commissioned, we move service. As far as decommissioning of the old station, that date is a lot more nebulous because that in itself is a construction operation. We could give you a tentative date, but I want to highlight that date could change, and depending on how we decommission it, it might change somewhat significantly, but we'd be happy to provide you a tentative date.
Sure thing. Thank you, Mr. Farrell. I'll follow up with you outside of this meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Great, thank you for the question. Any other board members online? Okay, how about any members of the public?
There are no public comments.
All right, we have no public comments on this item. I'll close public comment and look for a motion to approve this amendment.
Yeah, move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion from Director Young. Is there a second? Oh, second. A second from
Halbert will second. I'll second.
Sir, Jackie will mark it as she sees fit, and we will go to a roll call, please.
Directors, alternate Rodriguez,
Yes.
Halbert,
Yes.
Burgess. Yes. Quintero. Supervisor Quintero. Shuklian.
Aye.
Young.
Yes.
Vice Chair Espinosa.
Yes.
Vice Chair Verboen.
Yes.
Chair Hume.
Aye. Very good, thank you. That will move us on to item number 6, approve a resolution of the governing board of the San Joaquin JPA approving an agreement with BNSF for preliminary engineering services for the Madera Station relocation project for an amount not to exceed $514,800 and authorizing the executive director to execute any and all documents related to the project, including approving any and all amendments hereto within her spending authority. We are back to Mr. Farrar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, board members. Item number 6 is essentially the flip side of the same coin for item number 5. Next slide, please. Background information. As such, we have just entered into an agreement to complete the design of the Madera Station. This station will run on the BNSF line, an operational railroad. Next slide, please. As the owner operator of the rail facilities, BNSF must review and approve all engineering plans. To review the engineering plans, BNSF uses preliminary engineering services to perform the project reviews and approvals prior to construction and to perform their due diligence. As such, agencies often enter into agreements directly with BNSF to perform these reviews. Next slide, please. Staff is recommending that the authority enter an agreement with BNSF to a not to exceed amount of $514,800 for the PE agreement. This amount has already been negotiated with the railroad. Next slide, please. Given the nature of this procurement, this falls under the non-competitive process. Since BNSF is the owner-operator of the tracks, we must enter into the agreement with them. We have the procurement and contracts department have followed the processes for the non-competitive procurement, and we have also contacted legal counsel. As such, we have followed section 7.1.2 of the procurement manual that outlines non-competitive procurements. Next slide, please. The fiscal impact, you can see funding sources for this phase are also SRA funds, in addition with TIRSIP funding shown in row 3. If you go to the bottom of the slide, you can see if this amendment is approved, there will still be over $118,000 for contingency and in this project line item. Next slide, please. As such, we recommend the board approve the agreement with BNSF for preliminary engineering services for a not to exceed amount of $514,800. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll go ahead and kick off, and it's just a question out of curiosity. Is the $800 for both this item and the previous item a coincidence, or are the two related? Just find it off that both amendments, $800.
It's a coincidence, sir. It's a lot of them. It's a coincidence. They're not connected.
Okay, very good. Well, unfortunately, the $633,000 you were bragging about in the previous item just got eaten up considerably if this gets moved. Are there any questions here in chambers? No? How about online? Are there any questions online? Are there any public comments for this item?
There are no public comments.
No public comments. We will close public comment. I would look for a motion.
Move approval of the resolution. Halbert.
Halbert, ready to get in there this time. Appreciate it. You were reading the transcription. And a second by Director Espinosa. Roll call vote, please.
Directors Rodriguez,
Yes.
Albert,
That's what I figured.
Yes.
Burgess. Yes. Quintero. Shiplian.
Aye.
Young. Yes. Espinosa.
Yes.
Verboen.
Yes.
Sherhune.
Aye. All right, that brings us on to item number 7, approve a resolution of the governing board of the San Joaquin JPA authorizing the executive director to submit and execute any and all grant applications, agreements, certifications, and insurances, and any other documents necessary to the California State Transportation Agency to obtain state rail assistance SRA funding in the amount of $1.2 million for the Madera Station relocation project. Mr. Perez, are you leading this off?
I am. Thank you, Chair, and good morning, board. Next slide, please. So this item focuses on funding for the Madera Station relocation project, which Lawrence talked about in detail in the prior 2 items. And so Senate Bill 1 was created the State Rail Assistance Program by directing a portion of new revenues specifically to provide operating and capital assistance for commuter and intercity rail agencies, with the direction these funds are spent in a cost-effective manner to provide operations and capital improvements for the benefit of the public. Next slide. So this table represents the annual estimated funding distribution for all eligible agencies for Cycle 2 SRA, which is from fiscal year 2021 through fiscal year 24-25, with actual allocations coming in higher due to the increase in diesel revenue. Next slide, please. And so the JPA has an unencumbered fund balance in the SRA program of $11,700,000, and this action would leave a remaining balance of $10,500,000. And so the recommendation, staff recommends approving the item, and I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the funding.
Great, thank you. Any questions here in chambers? Seeing none, any questions from any of the online directors? Okay, any members of the public wishing to comment on this item?
There are no public comments.
No public comments. We will close public comment and look for a motion in a second.
Make that motion.
Okay. All right. Director Burgess and Director Young seizes the opportunity as everyone else is asleep. We have a motion in a second. I'll roll call vote, please.
Directors Rodriguez,
Yes.
Halbert,
Aye.
Burgess,
Yes.
Quintero, Shuplian,
Aye.
Young,
Yes.
Espinosa,
Yes.
Verboen, Supervisor Verboen, and Chair Hume.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, on to item number 8. This is an informational item. It's the City of Antioch presentation to the board regarding the Antioch-Pittsburgh San Joaquin's passenger stop.
We're going to have Tamika Smith, our Director of Rail Services, introduce our guest.
Okay, let's have Tamika Smith, our Director of Rail Services, introduce our guest, please.
Thank you. Mayor Thorpe is here to speak on behalf of Antioch.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Well, yourself?
Good. I'm sorry I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. This is somewhat of a last minute request, as I believe our city manager was supposed to come here to present. We have since had a slight change in leadership at the city. We have an acting city manager now. So we had a little turbulence. So I'm here on behalf of the city of Antioch, the greatest city God ever created, by the way. If you don't believe me, it's in the Bible. So I've been the mayor for the last 2 years. I've been a resident of Antioch for about 11 years. I've been involved in the city for quite some time. When my ex-wife and I moved to Antioch, I became the director of development at San Jose State University. We chose to live in Antioch. We chose to live in Antioch because of its diversity, its growing population, and we wanted our daughter, who's now 13, we wanted our daughter to grow up in a community where she saw diversity, where she saw a diversity not just in ethnic backgrounds, diversity in educational attainment, a diversity in economic wealth, and that was Antioch. And so we came there. We got involved with politics. I was campaign manager for the first African American woman to become to be elected to our city council. That was Monica Wilson. And I also helped Diane Burgess with her campaign for supervisor, although we might have a slight disagreement on this issue, but we've maintained respect for one another, and I think so. I'm excited to be here to share what we're doing in the city of Antioch. I looked at the staff report for the next item that will come up. 2 themes that have come out for me: crime and homelessness. Shutting down a train station is not a solution to homelessness. It's just not. Antioch, before I was the mayor, was reeling from the economic downturn. So those of you who are familiar with the housing crash, you know that Stockton, Antioch, places like Vallejo were the epicenter of the mortgage foreclosure crisis. We have come a long way, an absolute long way as a city. We were one of the oldest cities in California. founded in 1848. We were incorporated in 1872. So we have a lot of storied history in our community, particularly with the Black Diamond mines and whatnot. Our new Chinese historic district that will be right at walking distance from this current Amtrak station. But I want to get back to crime and homelessness, because clearly that's what the issue here is today. I want to tell you that in the last 2 years since I've been the mayor, crime has gone down and has not surpassed the rate of crime since any time between 2013 and 2020. We continue to drive down crime in our city because it's a challenge. It's been a challenge. In last year, between 2021 and 2022, the murder rate went down by 25%. And that's huge for our city because we've been working at it for a long, long time. But we're making strides today because of the investments that we're making in our city. Some of those investments include the new ShotSpotter program that soft launched about a week ago. So ShotSpotter is now part of the city of Antioch. That was a $1.4 million investment that we made as a city. We recently last year we were awarded a CalVIP award, state, $1.8 million. And that then launched our new Department of Public Safety and Community Resources. This new Department of Public Safety and Community Resources will be the epicenter in terms of community resources to our community. So this will be where our our homeless services will live out of. We just passed rent control. This is where the rent control office will be. In addition to that, we will have our gang violence interruption strategies and team working out of this department, and a host of other things that I know, like Director Who you're familiar with, coming out of Sacramento, in Sacramento County. So we continue to work towards reducing crime in our city. There's a lot of talk about crime in Antioch. The city, a few miles down from us, the city of Concord has more crime than Antioch. But I don't know why, I don't understand how, but crime continues to plague us in terms of the narrative in the city of Antioch. We are the second most racially diverse city in the San Francisco Bay Area. We are the second largest city in Contra Costa County. We are the epicenter in terms of relative location in East County. We are the epicenter. We're the center of all of Eastern Contra Costa. In order to get to Brentwood or Oakland, you have to go through Antioch. And for the folks in far East County, to get to the Bay Area, you have to get through the city of Antioch. And so our positioning is key to Eastern Contra Costa County and to transportation as well. So on the crime side, I have these stats that tell somewhat of the facts. The facts just tell a different story. And you're more than welcome to pass these down, but you'll see that crime continues to go down. I had our chief of police pull data, a quarter-mile radius from the Amtrak station. What I'm seeing here, the data doesn't support this narrative about why we should close down this station. And so it's somewhat alarming in terms of where we're at today. I will pause for a second and just remind everybody, this is all new to me. I didn't know we were shutting down the Amtrak station. When I talked to my colleagues on the city council, they didn't know that the Amtrak station was being shut down. Oakley getting a new station has not been new news to us. We didn't know it was coming at the expense of the city of Antioch. We just did not. We did not know that our city manager, former city manager, Ron Hernandez, had a conversation with your staff and agreed to shut down the station. And as I said to Ms. Tamika here, I said, who the heck voted for him? Nobody. People voted for me, and people voted for my four colleagues and the city clerk and the city treasurer for our city to represent and make decisions on behalf of the people, not the city manager. The city manager works for me and four members of the city council. So that was inappropriate and it was wrong. I spoke to our supervisor who represents that waterfront area, Federal Glover. He has no clue that this is happening today. He said, please share with them that I'd like to have a voice in this decision as well. We have not had that opportunity. So in terms of quality of life, in terms of homelessness, I will share with you that we've been making investments into homelessness. When homelessness got out of control at this station, as the mayor, I can't speak for previous mayors, and I can't speak for previous city managers, but I can speak for what I did as the mayor. We took that issue serious. We have cleared all the homeless, all of our unhoused brothers and sisters. And I don't mean cleared as in we pushed them to some corner, as we typically do. We literally invested with the county $300,000 of our general fund money to house these people into the county's transitional housing program, the old Motel 6 in the city of Pittsburgh. We house those people there. There are now people who are living on those railroad tracks and the train station who now today, this very moment, have permanent housing because of that partnership we did with the county. So we cleared that out. That was called the Louis Rocha Housing Emergency Housing Plan. I announced that about a year and a half ago, and it was in response to a homeless individual who was killed by the Amtrak. And so we took it very serious. We've taken very serious the investments we've made in downtown, but I'll get to that later. So kind of just talk about homelessness. About 2 years ago, I had announced that we wanted to pursue leasing a hotel in the city of Antioch so that we can have a place for homeless individuals. The focus of that hotel is to really work with our unhoused brothers and sisters who have been chronically homeless for years. And there are people who are upset with us because of that decision, because they said, but what about the women? What about the women and children living in cars? I understand that. We recognize that. But the challenge has always been, particularly when you get complaints from constituents, has been those who have been living in tents, chronically homeless for a long, long time. That is our focus. And that is the hardest, most difficult, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you, the hardest and most difficult population you can possibly work with. Because we're talking about substance abuse, we're talking about mental health issues, a host of issues to deal with this population. We are days away from receiving our certificate of occupancy for the old executive inn, so that we can start finally putting people in those rooms. There's going to be 33 rooms that are going to be available. We anticipate people living in those spaces anywhere between 120 to 180 days. Then we're talking about almost 95 people a year that we can potentially serve with this hotel. And it's modeled after the Bridge Housing Company. It's modeled after, during COVID, the state was leasing hotel. Well, it's modeled after your hotel.
Project Room Key.
Project Room Key. It's modeled after Project Room Key. The only difference is we're paying for this. The city is making this investment. No city in Contra Costa County is making the kinds of investments that the city of Antioch is making towards homeless services. No city. No city. We're the only city doing that. So we will be moving people into this place and then hopefully into permanent housing in partnership with the county. So we're serious about the homelessness issue. We're serious about the issues that we've seen plague our city for a long, long time. And the Amtrak station is a part of this, which is why I'm here talking about it. But that, we're days away. We've already identified, we have our list of individuals who are going to be going into this hotel. So as soon as we receive our certificate of occupancy, we'll start moving people in. In addition to that, we're also starting, we will be the first city in Contra Costa County to launch the first crisis response team, 24/7 crisis response team, 24/7 crisis response team. This will be a non-police crisis response team so that we get our police department focused on more violent crime, but more importantly, we actually send trained professionals to deal with some of the challenges that we've seen in and around the Amtrak station in our downtown. That has done it, that we've done our soft launch, so we're in kind of a quiet phase, testing it out, and then we'll do our more public launch so that the public is aware of the new crisis response team. So that'll be run, that's a $1.8 million investment that the city is making on an annual basis to have this. And this was a major, this was the flagship of our police reform efforts that we started 2 years ago. I want to say that the hotel is, it's about a $2.3 million investment annually from the general fund. And again, we're making these investments. But of course, none of these work in partnership without the partnership of our county. And I told you about the new Department of Public Safety and Community Resources. In terms of economic development, I went back, because we all met about this was all breaking news to us, and I looked at our downtown specific plan. Our downtown specific plan hovers around the idea of transit-oriented development. The only transit in our downtown is, of course, our transit buses, but the Amtrak station. And if you pass our zoning map, our land use map, for the downtown specific plan, you'll see it is, and this was adopted in 2018. You will see that the Amtrak station has always been a key part of our overall economic strategy and our housing strategy, because as you can see in and around the Amtrak station, we've zoned it for mixed use, with the idea of TOD. We have zoned it for high density residential, as well as medium density residential, all within walking distance of the Amtrak station. So the Amtrak station is part of our overall economic development plan. We received, Contra Costa County received the largest grant from the Department of Transportation recently through our Contra Costa Transportation Authority, which I'm a member of. We received about $28 million. We were the largest in California, the second largest in the country. More than 50% of that funding is coming to the city of Antioch. The largest chunk is coming to L Street, which is the main entrance into our downtown, which leads you to our Amtrak station. $13 million to build a complete street for the city of Antioch, and finally have a street that connects you in a meaningful way to the county fairgrounds, which then leads you to the Amtrak station, which is 2 blocks away. So the Chamber of Commerce has also been proud of some of the work that they've been doing. They recently moved out of their old location and moved into a larger location close to the Amtrak, walking distance to the Amtrak station. They have an application right now to become California Visiting Center. So they're making the investments in terms of tourism for downtown. We have given them we've given them a little over $100,000 to make these efforts a reality, because we want to show the state that they have support from the city as well. So that's the Chamber of Commerce and some of their goals and what they're trying to accomplish. But walking distance of this Amtrak station was one of the oldest theaters in East County, and that's the El Campanile Theater. It's one of the oldest, not the oldest, but it's the oldest continuous running theater in East County. Wally Plaza, which is outside of the train station, will be Antioch's historic Chinese district. If you don't know, if you're not familiar with the history there, we were one of the original sundown towns in California, where we literally burned down Chinatown and pushed people out because we didn't want them there. And when they were there, we had sundown town laws. So there are tunnels underneath our little area where Chinese used to traverse back and forth to their homes and businesses because they weren't allowed to be out in public. So for me to stand here and tell you that Antioch is one of the most racially diverse cities in the Bay Area, up until the 1990s, Antioch was exclusively white. And it wasn't white because of happenstance, it was white by design. And so we've broken a lot of barriers to get to the place that we're at today. And so around this Amtrak station, I can't be blind to the fact that we have large populations of Latino community, people who only speak English. We would look to one day, I don't know, at one point there was discussions about doing commuter rail on Amtrak to Oakland. These are the types of options that we're looking for our residents, particularly those who live in underserved communities. In addition to that, the G Street and 2nd Street, which is our main corridors there in downtown by the Amtrak station, are kind of going through a little renaissance. So we'll be having our first cannabis dispensary on G Street. And these cannabis businesses, believe it or not, have been very nice to Antioch. Because they've increased public safety because of the restrictions that we have. And to have one so close to the Amtrak station is going to be critical because the foot traffic that we've seen at the other locations has been key to economic growth. And so it's been very, very helpful. We are also building a new town square a few blocks from the Amtrak station. For a long time, residents fought for a town square. We're delivering on that. We set aside close to, I think, $200,000 in the planning phase of this town square. So I can't emphasize enough that we have made investments in this city for public safety. We've made investments to house our unhoused brothers and sisters, but we've made investments towards economic development. And part of that plan has been around the Amtrak station, and to have that taken away from us, I cannot in good conscience sit here and agree to that. And I can't in good conscience not fight for the people of Antioch. Absolutely. And so I don't know what you're going to do at the next one. I hope you vote no, but at the very least, I would ask for a postponement so that the right parties can be at the table to have a voice, like our supervisor, our state senator, and our state assembly member, as well as the city council, to talk about some of the commitments that we're willing to make to ensure that the Amtrak station stays there. I failed to mention that we also just finished an RFQ process for private security, because as more activity has happened in downtown, you're going to have more problems. So we have a new restaurant called Monica's at Riverview, which is literally right outside the train station. It is making over $600,000 in monthly revenue. Smith's Landing down the street there, which is again walking distance, is averaging about $400,000 to $500,000 a month in revenue. So because of the increased activity, we have committed to having private security control our parking lots. That includes the Amtrak station. So there's going to be another layer of security at the Amtrak station that not only serve people of Antioch, but serve the customers as well. So with that is my long-winded way of saying, please do not close our Amtrak station. Item 40. Sir.
Well, thank you. While you were speaking, I Googled Antioch, best city in the Bible. And Google said, did you mean Elk Grove showing that? We're having technical issues this morning, apparently. I don't know what's going on.
Well, you could be the best city. All I said was we were the greatest city.
Thank you, Mayor Thorpe, for coming out and speaking to us. And I guess I'm a little confused as to why did we do this as a separate item just so that the mayor or whomever was going to be representing Antioch would have more time to present?
Yes.
As opposed to being held to a public comment schedule?
Yes.
Okay. But we will actually be addressing his concerns in the next item, is that correct? Okay. Are there any questions at this point for the mayor?
Yes. Not a question. Hello?
Go ahead.
Not a question, just a comment, Mayor Thorpe. It's clear that you are passionate and knowledgeable and care deeply for your community. They are lucky to have you. Thank you for your time. And I appreciated learning much more about Antioch. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Halbert. Vice Chair Espinosa.
Yeah, my question was, is still servicing that now, even though it was torn down, the station was torn down?
Correct, and I'll address that in the next item.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your information. It was very thorough, and it's glad that as a board, we're able to hear that because, we were able to tour the station about 4 or 5 years ago. And we did see a lot of homeless, but now hopefully, like I said, we have a new mayor that cares about the community. And I know that, I know the city managers, sometimes they come and go, and then sometimes they don't have the feeling of what the council really has for the community. So it's great to see what you've done in Antioch. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Director Bridges.
Obviously, Mayor Thorpe is an excellent champion advocate for a city. And he also wears regional hats on other committees. But today, he is speaking on behalf of the city of Antioch, and I've got to say you did a great job.
And I do want to just have a, well, I have a comment or question first. So I see the little thing here that says for Amtrak. Right now, it's not a building. You said something about a new building earlier, I thought, at the very beginning, maybe not. So were you planning on having our building up here, the area for the Amtrak beyond what it is right now with your whole COD plan and all this?
So there was once a structure, the structure came down, and I think we paid for bringing the structure down, or we contributed a hefty amount of money. And the idea was to eliminate the structure because there was homeless people. In terms of any future development of that station, we're more than happy to entertain that conversation. That's why I'm asking you, if that is the direction this board would go in, we're more than happy, I'm more than happy to take that back to our council to talk.
It was just a question just based on the design. I didn't know if that was like actual structure.
Oh, it's a station, it's not a structure. There are boxes and there's a park around it. So there's more grass, it's more of a grassy area. And then there's parking along the way. It's certainly not like this.
Right, so, well, I mean, you're a true champion and advocate. I didn't get to meet, I mean, we walked in together. I know
Yes,
we were trying to mayor, great meeting. So, yeah, so great meeting you. I understand, the challenges that we have as we're trying to represent our community, and then you're coming in after decisions that have been made. It brings into a very complicated situation. But I'm glad, and I'd like to talk to you even later, and even all the going things you said about cannabis, because for it to be downtown, our city is like, oh my God, you're trying to hook our whole kids on drugs, and it's a whole different discussion. And I remember when a park in a structure in one of our main parks that we have all of our activities in was actually literally torn down, demolished when homeless had started, congregated there, and just before 2020. So cities can do some kind of rash things sometimes to try to address things that they think will help solve the issue. And it doesn't. I mean, of course, 2020 complicated the issue and it made it worse. And so we just have to do some other things. But I mean, I know I hear you today, and I'm sure all of us hear you. We understand the tough situation you're in. But I mean, and you wouldn't be mayor right now if you didn't care, and to be able to try to come and to advocate for your community as well. But I just wanted to just.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the comments, particularly around, I feel like this decision was a reaction. And in my time in public policy, I've never seen a good decision when it's a knee-jerk reaction. Every decision that we've made as a city, the investments we've made, is a long-term plan. And it requires structural changes within our city. So that means going against the status quo and pissing a lot of people off. But we've made those commitments, and we're going to continue to make those commitments. But what we're not going to do is make knee-jerk reactions, as we saw, because it just doesn't help anything. And it's clear to me, particularly after seeing the staff report, that our response, and it wasn't my response, but our response was a knee-jerk reaction to solving homelessness. You don't have to solve homelessness by tearing down structures and closing down. Solve homelessness by housing people. Point blank here. Those are the investments that we see. My leadership is making.
Any other comments from directors online?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is Director Rodriguez here for the city of Madera. Also, I want to share the sentiments of Mayor Thorpe. I think you brought up a good point that no decision should be made by a city manager. I think you certainly should have the opportunity, you and your colleagues. You are the voted official, and the direction should come from your governing board. The fact that this came before you as a shock, I mean, obviously raises questions, but certainly I appreciate the recognition of your beautiful city. I am also familiar with this process. This happened to our community here in Madera, but obviously we've got over that, and we've just passed some resolutions for the new relocation of our station. But early on in the process, I know that there wasn't a lot of discussion with our governing board, since we have a sphere of influence within the current location that's in Madera. But I do share your sentiments, because I know that folks want to know what's happening, especially when you have an economic opportunity being pulled right underneath you. certainly that creates issues within, or uproar at least within your community and or city. So I just wanted to tell you that I do share your sentiments. And I would hope also, and this is in the following agenda item, that we do postpone and allow you to at least convey this to your constituency, your other public officials, and hopefully you come up with the plan that may be able to save that station. Those are my comments, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from online? Okay, well, I thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulate you not only on your election and what you've been doing with the city. The statistics show that you're experiencing something of a positive renaissance. Thank you for taking measurable, tangible, and quantifiable efforts with the unhoused residents in your community.
Thank you.
And good luck with all of that.
Appreciate the time. Thank you for reaching out. Appreciate it.
I do have a member of the public wishing to speak on this item. Okay. Is that okay at this time?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Rowan.
Excuse me, my name is Kevin Romick. I've been a resident of Oakley for 25 years. I am the former mayor of Oakley and former council member for the city of Oakley. I'm also a former board member of the San Joaquins. I'll be short and brief about what Oakley has done in anticipating the arrival of the station for Oakley. We are currently spending over $6.5 million worth of improvements in the downtown to support the train platform. The improvement consists of over 200 parking spaces, a kiss and ride drop off, a new road savings, public plaza, arena areas, and new sidewalks and landscaping. We've added a number of restaurants in the last few years downtown, and 3 new restaurants are opening up this year, housed within a brand new building that is nearing completion. The building was located in the eastern area of the parking lot, obviously within walking distance of the station. We've been working on this effort since 2014 and have committed many millions of dollars of in-kind improvements to support the platform. Our platform will provide parking, be safe, well lit, and will be a critical component to attract a new investment into downtown. Over the last 10 years, Oakley has been ranked by the SafeWise website as one of the top 50 safest cities in the state of California. And I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have anybody online wishing to speak on this item?
Andrew Becker has a public comment.
Okay, Mr. Becker.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I am a longtime resident of Antioch and a community member, as well as a nonprofit leader that works with the unhoused in our community and works towards building affordable housing solutions. And the unhoused problem is a regional problem that is not just atypical to Antioch, and is an issue that the community at large is struggling to deal with. And one of the large components for that problem is a lack of resources. And so my frustration here, first off, is that I received notification about this action through a media outlet on social media at 10:30 this morning. So I was lucky enough to be able to hop on and to speak. But I can tell you that my community here at large doesn't even have an idea of what's going on and is being requested here, or the action that is being taken. And I think that that's very, very unfair to our community, because like our unhoused residents, we are lacking resources in East County. And it seems that the solution here is to take away a means of transportation from our local community in the downtown area that already struggles to reach mass transportation, and I personally ride Amtrak. I get on that train at that station, and I can tell you that there is a problem throughout California, right? But we have residents in Antioch that take that train routinely, that down to Bakersfield, down to Madera, down to Southern California. Every weekend they're hopping on this train. We have commuters that are getting on and off of this train. We are working on improving our downtown space, and I do think that this action is a bit premeditative. I understand that there are issues here, and respectfully, I think that if one of them is safety, I have not seen Amtrak police nor BNSF out at this right of way or at this stop when these trains are coming in. I think it's completely unfair that there was a lack of those services or a will to work with local police services towards addressing this problem before just ripping away this station. So I just want to say that, like our mayor, I think that there are other solutions, and I understand the great work that Oakley is doing, but Antioch geographically sits at the middle of eastern Contra Costa County. You would be asking residents from Bay Point or Pittsburgh to come all the way to Oakley, which could be a 30 to 40-minute drive through commuter traffic to have to get on this train, or to work through public transportation, which could be up to 2 hours with Tri-Delta Transit to get over to Oakley to get on this train, which would make it impossible for them to use this service and would decrease ridership with Amtrak. So I just ask that we find other solutions, and more importantly, I ask that you work with our local community and educate and inform our local community, because we have residents that are willing to step up and to bring forth solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Any other additional comments?
Kevin Rohani has a comment.
Mr. Rohani, welcome back.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to echo what Mayor Romack said and add a couple of clarifications. City of Oakley has been working with the San Joaquin Joint Power Authority for nearly 10 years, since 2014, in a very collaborative fashion towards the Oakley station. We have structured many of our improvements around the station over these nearly 10 years, aside from millions that has been invested to improve downtown Oakley, the infrastructure. Right now, as we speak, we have a large, nearly $6 million project to put all of the street infrastructure right next to the Oakley station to be able to service it. As we have also worked with our partner agencies, the Tri-Delta Transit, who serves the East County area with the buses, they just in December finished completion of a major bus station, which is maybe half a mile from this site. It's a beautiful facility. They bring all of their buses, and we have, again, our plan is, along with Tri-Delta, they would be bringing bus people to the station to be able to use the station. So I just wanted to offer the perspective that this is a much broader project. It wasn't something that created overnight. We've been working at it for nearly 10 years to structure all the components of it, not only with the San Joaquin Joint Power, but also our other sister agencies. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else online?
There are no other comments.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and close public comment on this item. Ms. Smith, do you have further comment on this item, or are we moving on to the next?
There's two things I need to clarify. One thing that I didn't mention, I serve on the Contra Costa Transit Authority. We currently have a study for a pilot program that we're going to be putting together for ferry service. So ferry service is coming, the stop is going to be by the Amtrak station. It doesn't make any sense to split up all these different transit points and not have one hub for transportation. That's pretty ridiculous. We are the home to the first BART station in the San Francisco Bay Area, absolutely. Down the street from, not a half mile away, blocks away, not a half mile away, is the proposed parking ride from I serve on Tri-Delta Transit. This is breaking news to me. I serve on Tri-Delta Transit. I've served on Tri-Delta Transit for the last 6 years. This is breaking news to me. The parking ride that's going to be developed in Antioch is much, much closer in terms of relative location than the one in Oakland. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. If only we could get the people out on the freeways to clamor for our trains the way these two cities are.
Exactly.
place as a society. Yes, Ms. Smith, so we're moving on. Now we will call you, and real quick, Stacy, the item that we talked about would be more appropriate for item 9, not right now. Is that correct? As far as ways that the JPA can help moving forward?
It would be appropriate for 9.
Okay, and we'll move on to item 9, approve the resolution of governing board. Let's just say discuss the resolution of the governing board. The San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority regarding the decommissioning of the Antioch-Pittsburgh San Joaquin passenger stop.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Let's see, next slide, please. So the San Joaquin service in Antioch-Pittsburgh, it's a quick stop on the Amtrak San Joaquin's route. The city of Antioch owns and is responsible for maintaining the land and the platform. BNSF Railway, they own the track. There are several challenges, which as the mayor mentioned, the previous city manager did green light the approval, or he approved the decommissioning of the station. Next slide, please. Or excuse me, next slide, please. In September 2019, SJJPA funded the demolition of the passenger shelter. And if I can use the pointer here, I know it may be a little bit difficult to see. So here's the previous shelter, and here was an unhoused individual. He climbed on top of the station, and he was living here. That's his tent here. The law enforcement, I'm unsure if Amtrak law enforcement or if the Antioch law enforcement removed him, but that was one of the situations that led the previous city manager's approval to demolish the shelter and to decommission the stop. Next slide, please. Okay, here is what the station sign looks like today. The JPA actually funded several times the approval, or excuse me, the rehab of the sign, and each time it's rehabbed, it's left in this condition. Next slide, please. And here we have the crime stats. I don't know if you can see here on the right side or the left side, there were 69 calls for service between January 2021 to December 31, 2022 at the Antioch station. That data was provided by the Amtrak Police Department. The station, we've had our onboard folks assaulted at the station, the Amtrak employees. To reduce variation, this is the only stop on the entire Amtrak San Joaquin corridor where the streetcar method is used. So at this stop, we open one door for the passengers to board and deboard. And that is to prevent variation as well as assault on the conductors. Next slide, please. Okay, as recent as December of last year, unhoused individuals were camping out in the ADA shelter where the wheelchair is kept. Amtrak staff asked them to leave. When Amtrak staff returned to inspect and make sure that not only did they vacate, but they also removed the wheelchair lift, which is valued at $11,000. So unfortunately, until the lift is replaced, any of our ADA passengers, they will have to travel to Martinez or Stockton to board the Amtrak San Joaquins. If this motion is approved, the San Joaquins will no longer serve Antioch upon the completion of the Oakley station, estimated Q3 of next year. And one thing that isn't on the slide, as recent as last week, Inspector Doug here from the Amtrak Police Department, his staff were providing assistance to our contractor to remove the wheelchair structure since it was empty. Upon their arrival, they determined that the lock on the wheelchair structure was not one of Amtrak's. So it was unlocked. It was the wheelchair lock was unlocked. It was cut off. And inside there were unhoused individuals with their belongings living inside. They did vacate without any incident, and we were able to remove the wheelchair structure. Next slide, please. Transit options for Antioch residents. So with the new Oakley station, they will have access to dedicated parking, as well as the Tri-Delta, I believe it's line 58, that serves Antioch, the community, and they will have access, that will take them to the Oakley station as well as Antioch E-Park station. The E-Park system is about a 10-minute drive from the Amtrak Antioch station. Next slide, please. Okay, there is no physical impact, and the recommendation is for the board to, I don't know, approve or discuss the decommissioning of the Antioch Pittsburgh station. Now I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great. I have a couple of questions just to kick things off, just so I can understand, since we had 3 items on a similar situation of decommissioning a station and opening a new station. Obviously, that was all within the same community, so it takes some of the either or, out of the equation. If this were one community, if either Antioch or Oakley were large enough to span both sites, would we still have the same policy or assurance that we would not just decommission the one station until the new commissioned station was open and on?
Yes, if I'm understanding the question correctly, you're asking about the geographical location.
That's right.
So one of the issues is BNSF policy that you cannot have 2 stations close together. So Oakley and Antioch are about a 6-mile train distance between them. So as the train goes into, let's say, Oakley and it stops, it has to get up to 79 miles per hour. So BNSF does not allow passenger trains to sort of go and then stop so close together.
Okay, so it is an either or scenario.
Yes.
We only have.
If I could caveat that.
Okay.
In our current scenario with locomotive haul equipment, that is true. The state is trying to progress to more lightweight equipment that can accelerate and decelerate quicker. And in that case, it has less disruption to the freight main line. And so in the future, we may have the ability to have some stops that are closer.
Okay. And then in addition to that, as I understand it, Oakley has made considerable investment toward a station, but the station is not yet there and operable. And so therefore, we really would be doing away with one station, or at least planning for the decommissioning before we have the other burning hand. Is that correct?
No. Antioch will not be deactivated or decommissioned until Oakley is activated.
Okay, that's an important distinction for me.
Yes,
I needed to understand that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and that poses some risk. I mean, Tamika and I have talked about that at length. It poses some risk to the board with some of the issues of assaults on board, certain community members getting, I mean, maybe not community members. And I, just so everyone knows, I'm an alum of Eastern Contra Costa, went to Mount Diablo High School. I was on the eastern edge of Concord, which is the rough city that you were talking about. So I have paid attention for a long time to supervisors and others that are in that area doing good work. We have been dealing with this issue for about 8 years, I want to say. Tamika was on the Amtrak side when we dealt with it the first time, the first few iterations. And it's a difficult situation. And the board has faced other difficult situations in other cities where we've delayed stations that might come on as part of Valley Rail expansion because we don't have enough of the components to make a safe station. Not necessarily community members, not necessarily anything in particular. It could be industry in one of our cases. The industry doesn't support just shoving a station in there. So we do have to do redevelopment work before we can commit and make that investment and push passengers into that location. We also have, San Joaquin's is the most diverse passenger rail network in the West, just in terms of cities served, demographics, writing, income levels, ethnicity, everything. San Joaquin's is the most diverse. So we have a lot of other stations. In fact, most stations have similar issues, demographics, but not the safety problem. We can walk to the San Joaquin station here in South Stockton, and you can see there's still an element of difficulty, but not the level of safety concerns for the Amtrak personnel, Amtrak police, railroad police that we're having in this particular location. There has to be a solution. There really does. I mean, we've got to be able to figure something out, but we haven't yet over the 8 years of discussions with different levels of council members, city staff, and always hopeful that we can make a commitment that indeed things are going forward that will help protect that area a little better. there are people that say, don't go to that station. And so your choices are go to Martinez or Stockton, right? So that leaves Eastern Contra Costa, my home, out altogether of the station if we can solve this. So I don't want to characterize this as brand new, but it could be brand new to people. Obviously your council, your board change. New people come in, need to be sort of reintegrated into what are we doing here and what have we tried? We've tried a lot of things here, both from the Amtrak side. Tamika's been on both sides of it, looking from both perspectives. The board toured the facility because we were having problems, and that was pre-COVID. So ongoing discussions at that time. But yes, Turlock had a change in leadership, and we needed to readdress the Turlock station location. So I do understand as we have new leadership that wants to make new commitments, it does put us it puts the board in a tough situation. We have knowing safety issues. And yet we don't want to leave the Eastern Contra Costa without a station. And we also, it's better for the system and all of its demographics that are everywhere to have a safe landing spot and a safe boarding spot. And so if you want more time to think this through more carefully, we're happy to try to do that. But it is a serious situation that's escalated to a pretty serious point. And so it does take a lot of thought to figure out.
And so if I may, real quick, shifting transportation modes, is the practical issue that the runway needs to be long enough, from a siting standpoint, that the decision has to be made whether the station would be in
here or
remain or move. And so therefore, so that it's not a knee-jerk reaction, there has to be that sort of forward-looking planning effort towards where the final location will be.
Yes. Now, one potential thing, we haven't talked about this, and I don't know if Amtrak police can address that. It's possible we could approach the BNSF to do a major infrastructure development addition that has a full double tracking through the entire area. But that would be, as we know on Valley Rail, right? The time it takes to design that, as you know, in Oakley, the time it's taken to set that up. Let's say we have the money immediately, and given our Valley Rail experience, I'm going to make a guess that would have to be a 4-mile stretch. And knowing about what that costs, we're probably in the $65 million for that. But that's an infrastructure option, right? Everything could be solved with money. But you'd have to explore something like that, or wait until the state's technology advancement moves, and the Rail Commission, who's your managing agency, will be testing the first zero-emission, lightweight, multiple car unit, so it's less ridership capacity that sometimes we need on the San Joaquin. But it can take care of some of those shorter trips that might come when high-speed rail is your service running on that line. Merced to the Bay Area. That's a shorter trip. Lightweight equipment could be used for that kind of trip, less seating, but quicker acceleration, quicker decel, and could be an application where you could perhaps double stop closer to them.
Director Burgess?
Kind of few things. But did you want to have Amtrak PD speak first, or should I?
Why don't you?
Okay, I'm going to go.
Okay.
So, like I said before, Mayor Thorpe is here with his mayor's hat on, and he, made a lot of very good points. I am representing the cities of Contra Costa, the mayor's conference, and I am a county supervisor. I am on regional transportation committees, helped get Mayor Thorpe on the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. He is currently the chair of Tri-Delta Transit, and we both serve on that. So we both have hats that are regional, and he is, speaking on behalf of the city of Antioch, and I imagine he's speaking on a regional level too. East Contra Costa, the three cities of Brentwood, Oakley, and Antioch, and then even Pittsburgh, are one of the fastest growing communities in the Bay Area. And there is a housing, jobs kind of imbalance. And so a lot of the efforts that are connected to transportation are related to housing, related to economic development, all of that. We put in an e-BART station in Antioch in 2018. That project was $565 million. And as soon as it opened, those 1,000 parking spots there were full. We had to add another parking lot of 800. We've spent over $581 million in Antioch for regional transportation for e-BART. And there isn't a lot of parking for the Amtrak station. And so I believe you said there's 200 parking spots in Oakley. When you think about it in a regional level, Tri-Delta has this, different projects that we're working on that will make getting to one place or another faster. And as a regional level, I think that this works because we have the e-BART, we will have the rail, and Brentwood has some projects to extend the e-BART all the way out there. So to me, on a regional level, this makes sense because of the parking. And Mayor Thorpe talked about the ferry service, and we just had a visit, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, from the folks that are looking at ferry service. And one of the big challenges that they were talking about is parking. And so I am interested in helping Antioch develop parking for ferry service, and maybe if that technology happens that we don't need such a big runway, we could then revisit the Antioch situation. Currently, Antioch PD is 67% staffed. They don't have as much law enforcement right now. That's the statistic that's been provided to me. We may have a different number, 77 of 115. I would not recommend this based on the crime and those things. I personally, that is a secondary thing. I'm looking at it on regional transportation. And I believe that when you get elected, sometimes you inherit situations that you didn't get to decide. Sometimes you get to benefit from some of those decisions, and you get to do the ribbon cutting and all of that. Sometimes you're given these challenges, and unfortunately, I think that's kind of what Mayor Thorpe has inherited, things that he wasn't aware of that happened before he came on, and now he's got to figure out, what to do. I will commit to helping look at finding parking, looking at this ferry service, and hopefully finding a way to create an opportunity in the future to commission another train station in Antioch should there be better conditions. There was a talk about the commute from, say, Bay Point or even Concord to Oakley. That's a counter commute if you're driving at any time of the traditional commute hours. So it's actually going to be easier for the folks in East County to get to that station if you're coming from the different directions. And one of your questions was, is this an either or? I think that unfortunately, if it didn't have to be either or, I would say and. But at the time, based on what staff has told me, the challenges, how much you've had to invest, and you said that not only did we have to pay for taking it down, I thought we paid for building it on top of that. So there's been investments by this organization to build and then have to take it down. And when we want to talk about regional transportation, I think that a station that has parking and is ready to go, I think that makes sense. So I will be supporting this.
Vice Chair Espinosa. Thank you very much. You know, when I come to this station, before I leave the station, I don't know if I would come around that much because, you know, it seems unsafe anyway, right? But we're here in a nice station and it's pretty clean and, you know, and it looks pretty safe. But I think that before decommissioning something, like I said, obviously, you know, the city manager is the one that approved this. And you know, I don't know what the politics back then was, and I don't know about it. But I think that as a board, as from staff, this, you know, like I said, I've been on this board when we toured it, probably for the last, you know, 6 years I've been on here. I don't remember if we got an update whether it was a proposal to the Antioch City Council, whether they were okay with, you know, removing or tearing down that. Like I said, we got a city manager, but we don't know if we could have done it. I think we should have got it from our staff that this was coming too. You know, I didn't know about this until I saw the agenda here. So, and I don't remember if, you know, we had something on the agenda before that. But I think that, like I said, I looked up the population of Oakley and I looked up the population of Antioch, and it's, you know, 44,000 as of 2021 to 150,000, 115,000, the same for Antioch, and it's 3-to-1 population. And I don't have anything against Oakley, and I don't have nothing against Antioch. Like I said, but I just regionally, population-wise, for people to travel 10 miles away when you have a big city already with all the transportation, like I said, I understand the parking, you know, but we have to, you know, I would propose that we give it a little more time if we had our state or the area state representatives, you know, commitment that, you know, to fund another station there, you know, I would probably support this. But right now, like I said, you know, I know that city managers play a lot of politics and well, as well as the council, obviously, but the council is what really cares about the community, right? City managers come and go. Like I said, I was a council member 8 years, a city mayor for 6 years, so you know, I understand a lot of the stuff that goes on in the cities as well. I know that $11,000 for the wheelchair lift that was stolen. Like I said, we can always have that. And there's plenty of businesses that can donate and make up that as well. Like I said, 10-minute drive to Oakley, which is probably, you know, a beautiful city as well. It's still a lot for many residents that you know don't have the income to travel and take that community. And if this is very, you know, a very diverse community, I think that it's a very struggle, especially at this time with all this inflation. Like I said, I had a flood in my community of Planada. It takes 10 minutes away to go to the city, and you know, like I said, there's bus transit, but it's still a struggle for citizens that don't have the income or unemployment, you know, facing unemployment to travel to another city for 10 minutes. And I know it's very hard for later on for BNSF to, like I said, to consider another station to go back to Antioch. So like I said, right now, I'll probably support continuance or make a motion to continue this item for later. You know, like I said, we have to make a decision to decommission it eventually. Like I said, you know, that'll be something we have to deal with. But this is just my opinion that, you know, we got to give the residents, we're 150,000 people, we have to drive 10 minutes to Oakley to that station. And like I said, it just, it goes against, transportation is a big issue as well for me. So for those residents. So right now, like I said, you know, it doesn't mean that the board might not move to, you know, to go ahead and decommission it, but it's just an opinion right now.
You know, I think you make a really good point, but I'd like to add to we have folks that, if you put a finger in East County, they're all growing. And to get across from, say, Bethel Island or Knightson or Discovery Bay or Tracy or Rio Vista in Solano County, this is actually a very convenient place to actually get to. And when we want to take vehicles off the road and be accessible, because we with Tri-Delta Transit have Triangle Ride, which you can get from your house to a place that you choose. It's actually more convenient. It takes more cars off the road. And although I'm sure we will be serving Antioch, we would also be serving, my district is 230,000 people. And so serving outside of my district, which would go a little further west, this would, in Contra Costa County, serve a lot of unincorporated areas that you don't see the population for.
So,
Director Young?
thank you. I've written so many different scribble notes around, just so much going through my mind. It's really a hard thing to balance. And I'm newer to this board, but I've served on other regional boards for like the last 10 years. And I serve on ACE in this room as well. And of course, that's why I'm a part of this board. I've been part of COG for years and mega region board for the last 10 years. And I've been mayor now. This is the beginning of my 3rd year. So, and I served as council member for 8. And we have term limits. I turned out. I'll turn out next year. So I did the full gamut as far as I could. So to see things regionally, and I know it's a challenge when different people come on new, because then they don't always have the historical context. And so Tracy's about to get real trouble. But as far as here and I mean, but I've learned over time to really just kind of absorb myself and try to really understand, and even those who are more senior, and just kind of seeing the aspects of things, and I understand the difficulty in this. And, you know, I mean, safety is truly important. And I know that, and it's bad that Antioch got that rap, because I've lived in Tracy now 17 years. And so I've been a part of the fabric of the council for the last 15. So I did get involved like right away. When I moved here, just to really see what was going on, I didn't anticipate running yet. I mean, you know, for anything, I just wanted to see how I could help. And my mentor, she said, be careful what you ask for. And so I ended up helping in different ways. I had originally looked at Antioch, quite honestly, 22 years ago, when I just had my youngest son. And I worked downtown San Jose, and it was just too far for me. So I'm just saying Fremont for a minute. And then when we were going to move, it was safety that made my determination to move to Tracy. So with all that, just looking at the dilemma with the whole historical context, and I do appreciate Smith here for reaching out to me to kind of educate me on kind of like what's really going on with this challenge, going back to whether the city manager made it on their own, whether they talked to the council. It's already hard enough coming into councils making decisions that you don't know how it's going to affect going into the future. And then city managers, it's even worse when, you know, others are making decisions and not communicating with the council. Even the structure that was torn down and demolished at our main park, Lincoln Park in Tracy, it didn't come past the council. I was on the council until people started complaining, why does this be a bulldozer? I'm like, what? It's our main. You're bulldozing something without a plan to rebuild or anything. And we do plans for this, but they did behind the scenes. But it was done, and we could do nothing about it. And it's still empty right there. So I did have it started out with a question. I had a question on here when the chair first asked about the distance. So I know it's 6 miles between the two. Yes. And so what is the minimum distance? That's more of a technical question. What's the minimum distance that they can have with current locomotives, with current trains?
I'm not sure, do you know? I'll take it down to the.
Okay. I'm asking, like 7, 8 miles, but you're just like so close that you just kind of like maybe relocate the one to Antioch.
It will depend. So if you're in a particular area that has double track and maybe some other sidings and industry, it will be different than if you're in a single track territory with long distances between the next sidings that you get to, because it has to do with freight trains that can be 2.5 miles long. So it'll matter what they're going through and then what the infrastructure plant looks like that you're going through. So I'll tell you, ACE has a couple closely spaced stations in the Tri-Valley, which is very problematic because we're coming down, especially when we're coming down off the Altamont. A long deal ago with Lawrence Livermore Lab that kind of inserted themselves in the early 90s. But it is problematic operationally. And it just, there could be some locations where it works better, where you have much more double track. But we're not blessed with that very much yet. We're working on doing double tracking through much of the territories because you need it for passenger rail, and then you can have things that are more closely spaced.
And so, you know, and for the last, I don't know how many years now, we've been going back to DC lobbying, you know, especially with the new infrastructure bill and all these things. Right now, that's the only caution is looking at not having a plan in place to try to help, because otherwise it looks like you're displacing and you're going backwards to what the goal is of, you know, bridging the gaps in the social economic divide and diversity, inclusion, and equity to have such a diverse community. And so we're trying to fix the wrongs of the past and running, you know, freeways to the middle of, you know, communities and things like that. And I just came from Cow a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about, you know, those very things. And so it looks like we're on the surface, so it's like, well, we're displacing this whole community. And the availability, as Melissa said, you know, as far as, you know, different ones that don't have vehicles, and I'm always fighting for that within my community too, you know, I mean, it's just like 5 miles over, but if you don't have a car, and you don't have relevant routes of transportation, then it stops your ability to be able to get to your jobs or get to your homes or get to your family or other things that are already in place. And so I don't know how far out Oakley is, but I know Oakley has stepped up to take the initiative, you know, to be able to fill in that gap that was anticipated years ago when the decisions that the makers that did that decided that it's not going to be here. And so, but I know it's hard to be blindsided to come into something and you're making plans around things not knowing. So in retrospect, going forward, whenever this board or any board makes like really huge decisions like that, maybe really just pushing to the local cities to make sure that it's lambasted everywhere. Now I tell you, you're not gonna ever reach everybody because people sit in that audience and then 3-4 years you come back with something and they act like, I've never heard it. I'm like, you were right there, what do you mean? So people are still gonna be ambiguous. I mean, that's just gonna happen. But to do all due diligence to make sure just proactively, not to complain about what was done in the past, because I don't know what was done in the past. But proactively making sure that the affected communities, Oakley, and I mean, and as you said, you knew Oakley was building, but not at the expense, or not as a replacement. It wasn't even at the expense. It was just as a replacement. To be able to have it in that region. I understand that Antioch is the epicenter as far as more centering to all the ones that have to go through. So taking all those things into consideration, you talked about the lighter vehicle or the shorter one or something that may be, and then also, I'm sure the supervisor lady at the end. So I just call you supervisor for today. Okay. So she, you know, talked about, you know, looking at maybe something for the future. I think that we definitely have to have some type of plan that really addresses this area. And I was just wondering if it was just a shorter period, maybe it's 20 miles, I don't know. But if it was a shorter area, I know you have your whole downtown specific plan, but even if there was another location that was in Antioch, maybe at more of an edge of Antioch, I don't know which way it goes, whether it's Pittsburgh or Antioch, to be able to not leave so displaced. And I know, I mean, 6 miles can be a lot, especially in the morning time. When I worked in Sunnyvale, you get on that freeway, when they first built that 237, I saw them build it just from streets. And if I left out 501, it took me an hour and a half, an hour to get back to Fremont. If I left 455 and got on that freeway, I get home in 20 minutes. So it was, and I tried side streets, that don't work. Yeah, that don't work. It's gonna take you farther to set up things. So, yeah, so it's those things, you know, just things that it looks like it's a short period. And then if you drive through that little route with no traffic, I mean, you can get to that like 5 minutes. It's like really short, but an hour when it's traffic. And so when people already have, you're in the mega area, region, and you don't want to add unnecessary things on. It will help another group as well, I know. But I just don't want to go opposite would just encourage to find some kind of solutions that's not going to completely displace while we're building. And we don't want to ignore the efforts of Oakley at all. We say, well, you're not relevant now, we want to go back. So we appreciate all the stuff.
I think one thing we do need to walk out with today, at least, is, and Tamika's words to me are, conductors getting punched in the face. And so that puts Amtrak in a situation. If someone's gonna come in and punch Tamika in the face, I have an obligation to protect her and the rest of the staff from getting punched in the face by doing their job, by opening the doors. And so if this is not a situation that we have in other places. So does it make you do with the name City of Antioch? At this location, when the trains pull in, nobody's wanting to be the one who has to open the door and do the fare check. And we run another service, we run ACE, and I can understand how difficult that would be. And we've had a few situations here and there over the 25 years of service coming up in October. But it's the rarity, and then I have to be on it to protect that staff so that that doesn't happen again. And so we have an obligation. Amtrak as a national organization, operator, can decide, we're not stopping. We understand you want to keep the station, but we've got to do something to protect, just as you would protect your city staff and you would protect your counties. You know, if they come into our office, we have an obligation. The train is the office for the Amtrak employees. And we have things we need to honor for them as well. So regardless of how we go forward, we also have this issue of making sure we've got employees that can be safe in performing their duties, which they do at every other station. We open the door, we check, and we've got to take care of that.
Okay, we've heard.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Because about the safety, even if it was a building there now and it wasn't going away, safety is a right now.
Yes, it is.
Something that has to be done. So, I mean, I don't think this is this item, but I don't know how we're addressing that. I know we have here, I don't know if he's gonna say something, but I'm just curious because of that, because I would not want to put anybody in danger of being hurt like that. And then at the same time, because of maybe a small group or a person, that's the problem. I wouldn't want to, hurt the other too. So I'm just curious as to what the solution is right now to help while that station is definitely there.
With the chair's approval, can Inspector come up?
Can we put a pin in that for just a second and let's continue with director questions just in case we haven't even checked in with the folks online yet. Did you have something?
Yeah, there's a couple different things that are being discussed. One is the safety issue, and that's one part of it. I am sympathetic to it, and I understand, and I don't want you being soft or anybody being soft in the face. But I'm more thinking about it on a regional level, and I would think that this body is interested in getting more people on the train. And so I believe that what we've seen in the numbers has not been a big change, and it's been there for a long time. I believe that we see parking and we see more access, we're going to get more people on the train. And I think the effort to reach out to people that are going to need assistance to get to that train is something we can do fairly easy. Like I said, Mayor Thorpe and I are on the local transit agency. So I believe that if the goal here is to get more people on the train, this provides an opportunity for more people to get to the train, get on the train, and use the train.
Okay. All right. Well, we have differing opinions here in the room. Are there board members online that would like to ask any questions or make comments?
This is Supervisor Verboen. I have a question.
Please proceed, sir.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. It just got real quiet when I started talking. So, yeah, my question is, so
Ready for you. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Still can.
You could not. Yeah, okay, so the Supervisor Verboen, the question I have, so are we putting a station in Oakley at this time? Or do we have a station in Oakley?
The station in Oakley, this is Tamika Smith. The station in Oakley is under construction and it's scheduled to open Q3 in 2024. So around winter, fall 2024.
Okay, and then how far is that from the Antioch station?
Train miles, about 6 miles.
6 miles, okay. That's my question, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other of the directors online?
Yes, this is Director Rodriguez. Question for staff. What other attempts have been made to bring in city officials and or local officials around Antioch regarding the decommissioning of this particular station? Was there efforts previously? And I ask that because I know it's news for some, and I understand that there's turnover in a city government. So I wanted to know from staff if this has been an attempt in the past, and what's been the reactions to that.
So when I was this is Tamika Smith again, when I was with Amtrak, there was connections with the city of Antioch, and more recently, staff has connected with the city manager, Mr. Johnson. We've been in discussions for about a year.
Okay, thank you. So just wanted to echo some of the comments that were made previously by the vice chair there, Espinoza, and add that although this is we're looking at this as a regional issue there, right, as far as ridership, and looking at some of the stats, ridership has been down since COVID. And I don't know if anyone can answer what the anticipated ridership would be for the amount of investment on this new station that we're proposing in Oakley. I mean, I know there's some optimism. We're optimistic to see ridership, but as we've seen over the years, there's been a decline in ridership with the Amtrak in general. How does this differ from the overall ridership reduction as far as the new station? And, you know, being that a lot of this service is subsidized, so I'm kind of curious as to how, at what point will you see a savings with the increased ridership?
So I will have to get back to you regarding the anticipated ridership for Oakley.
And thank you, appreciate that. I didn't anticipate you having that. I just want to throw that out there because with the investment that we're doing, although we call it regional, a lot of the times, you know, these regional opportunities may have disparate impacts in the communities that are being especially decommissioned. So just something to look out for. There is a possible opportunity. There seems to be some hope for that community there as far as what the officials are looking to do. I certainly would propose that we postpone this up until you give the community at least an opportunity to convey this to its constituency and see if there's no other solutions that can be done at the moment. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from directors online?
Yeah, this is Supervisor Verboen again. Just another question. I know we talked about the Oakland station and we had city council speak to us years ago, talked about it, but I don't remember talking about closing down the Antioch station during those talks. So I'm like a hands-on guy. I like to see things with my own eyes. I would like to go up there. I'd like to postpone this as well. And I'd like to go up there and see for myself what we're actually talking about physically. I'm not comfortable shutting down someone's station when we're hearing about, you know, and everybody knows how I feel about high-speed rail. We're talking about connectivity and moving people around. Stop shutting it down a station. I'm not sure if it makes any sense to me. It is only 6 miles, so it may make sense if I see it for myself. But yeah, I'm not comfortable at this point right now. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from directors online? Okay, hearing none. I have a question kind of from a practical standpoint, and that is when we were discussing the Madera station, it sounded like the questions regarding commissioning the new station and decommissioning the old station, that there was maybe some terms that aren't necessarily same for the layman as they are within the train world. And so it sounded like there was a practical consideration of decommissioning that had more gravity to it than just moving service. It seemed like I was interpreting that. I may be wrong now. But so I'll put a finer point on my question, which is what would happen if we did not officially decommission this station, left it in place, and moved service to Oakley until such time that technology changes or we can identify a different location within Pittsburgh, Antioch, something so that we're not technically removing it. We're just saying, look, we're gonna put a pin in it and we're gonna come back to it.
Well, a couple of the activities that go along with decommissioning the station is removal of the signage. So we would work with Amtrak to ensure that the passengers are aware that the stop has been moved to Oakland. But there would no longer be signage. The track obviously would remain. The structure, not the structure, but the wheelchair lift would no longer be there. So
Apparently it's no longer there anyway.
Yeah. There are a few activities that come along with decommissioning, and the biggest one is alerting the passengers that this is no longer a stop. Your stop has been moved to Oakland, as well as the removal of the signage.
In Tamika's world, and decommissioning is what she just said, the suspension of service. In Lawrence's world, he's a capital projects animal. Decommissioning is decapitalizing, right? But on the rail side of things, you would leave the platform in place because that could serve a purpose if you need emergency deboarding. If you were going to put a station back in at a later date, you'd leave all of that infrastructure planned in place. He was saying, can you have to decommission something on a capital basis? It has its own timeline. But in the rail setting, we likely would not ever do that because it helps the railroad if something happened and they needed a platform to inspect or look. And that's your major investment is the platform itself, unless you're building a building.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, like I said, I have a problem with decommissioning the station over all about transportation and taking a station away from 150,000 people. You know, that transportation that's, like I said, badly needed during these times and more affordable. So like I said, I would make a motion to postpone it for now. And hopefully they can have, like I said, you know, we need the public to be aware of what's going on. So that way, give the opportunity of the mayor to, you know, have public meetings about it, to have the state officials present, and have some of us board members present, so that way the public knows about it. Because, like I said, everything's political, whether he's running or not running again. It's all comes back to the council. What, you know, because it always comes back. Like I said, we're all up for re-election, and it's like, hey, you let this station go down, and it's like sometimes the public is not aware that, you know, previous boards, you know, councils that, you know, got done or they elected to do, or the city manager, you know, stuff like that happens. So I want to make sure that the public is aware in the city of Antioch and whoever, I say it's a regional station, so it's going to affect a lot of people. So, you know, if we decommission the station like that, it would be my fault too, because we're not giving the opportunity to the public to have it say in court. No, I was there, right?
So I made note of your motion to continue from earlier. I'll call for a second. I'm still.
I'll second that motion.
Who was that online?
That's Director Rodriguez.
Okay.
While you're writing that down, I just got a question, maybe two.
Yes, please, go
For Smith. And that has to do, because this item is really just to say that we're going to decommission this particular passenger stop, right?
Yes.
So the timing, so two different timings that I'm asking about. The first timing is, I know you want to start notifying the passengers that you're having to stop. What is that time period usually? I mean, because right now it's like a year and a half away.
Yes.
So
So as we get closer to and Oakley is final with the platform, then we would work with marketing to put together the timing. So maybe 6 months.
okay, so they need a year notice, or they need the 6 month notice?
I don't know if there's a requirement, so we would work as quickly as we can. So if everything goes smoothly with the platform that Amtrak is installing in Oakley, then we would work backwards.
And so this item right here, it seems like if you still have that, is that how time sensitive is making this decision based on Oakley? Does this have to do anything with, is it hampering any work of Oakley moving forward?
No, it is not.
Okay.
It is not, no. They're moving forward, we're moving forward with Amtrak as well.
Okay, so we have time to not make this decision. Anyways, we have time to work on another plan. And so I just want to make sure whatever we decide that we have some plans in place that is considering. I already said my little.
I will add, we should probably bring back to you the full host railroad issue, which is adding, before high-speed rail, adding a stop in the San Joaquin corridor on the BNSF Railroad. This is not on the UP, but on the BNSF Railroad requires taking a stop away. The limitation is not adding a station within a certain framework depending on the area. So that's your too close issue, but there's also too many issue. So the suggestion of BNSF is if you are going to add Oakley and you are going to keep Antioch, you are going to get rid of a station in the valley. So I want to make sure we bring that back. We get them to stop the bouncing ball there because it's a broader issue and we owe you that broader issue as well.
So I want to kind of pick up on what Stacy just mentioned there, because we went through this certainly up to the service from here north. So Stockton is a little bit of an oddity, and that's where ACE and San Joaquin both come through Stockton, and then how they're treated in the Bay Area and how they're treated in the Valley is slightly different. And so in Lodi, just north of us, because we had to move from the Sacramento subdivision to the Stockton subdivision or vice versa, whatever, anyway, UP basically said the tracks that you're using, you have no capacity on. We will not sell it to you. You cannot take it from us. You cannot compel us to do what you want to do. If you want to run more trains, which we did, you have to move over to this other subdivision where we have all the capacity you could ever want. In so doing, now Lodi, their train station is moving out of their historic downtown to
the county.
I don't even know how many miles.
It's in the county.
In the county, out in the middle of nowhere. And that's because that's where those tracks are. In Elk Grove, which is arguably the greatest city in Michigan, to say.
He really likes Elk Grove.
We've had a heck of a time trying to find a place to site our only station. Right now, you have to get on a bus and come down to Stockton if you want to get on the San Joaquins, and I've done that trip. And I think we're on our third iteration of where we said, this is it, this is the magic secret sauce. And so it's difficult when you're looking at doing that, how you make it work regionally. Now, I've been focused on Elk Grove as a city council member in Elk Grove, having grown up there. We went from 13,000 on the population sign to 180,000 on the population sign. So I understand what growing region is. We are somewhere in the top 10 most diverse cities of our size in the United States. So I understand certainly the changing face of a community, but I also get regionalism. And so now that I represent a district that runs all the way down where if I get my feet wet, I'm in Contra Costa County, literally just the size of the Antioch Bridge. I know that there are a whole host of people who they've got to figure out which direction do I go if I want to take this mode of transportation. So are there BART stations in both Antioch and in Oakley?
No, there's just, BART ends in Antioch.
Okay.
On the Oakley border.
On the Oakley border.
Okay.
But it's, as the road, it's very close to, the highway 4, and it's not close to the downtown. So there's a lot of people coming from Brentwood, Oakley, Discovery Bay, Rio Vista, Tracy, different people that are coming in to take rail. And I do want to point out too, that there's a lot of people from my area, including Antioch, which is a larger portion of Antioch is in my district, are going over the hill to Livermore to get on the ACE train. So it's a regional thing. And so while rail is definitely something that local folks will use. It's a regional transportation to get around to the Bay Area.
And I think that's sort of where I'm coming at this, from the perspective that really what we are providing is not necessarily daily service or going to the grocery store from your home or that type of a thing. It really is more of a extended travel trip, right? So it's a tough one. And the only thing worse than knee-jerk reaction and not planning is when administrations come in and they swing the pendulum all the way back the other way. And so, you know, I feel, in my heart, I feel like the Band-Aid has been ripped off on this decision, and even if we disagree with it, we have had another jurisdiction and folks, including this agency, expend considerable dollars towards a new plan, and to go backwards. And at the end of the day, as I mentioned, from switching from the one subdivision to the other subdivision, really, we are guests in someone else's house. UP or BNSF is the ultimate arbiter of what we are allowed to do. And then on top of that, we are partners with Amtrak that, as has been mentioned, they can say, no, we're not going to do that anymore because of the safety of our employees or whatever. So I will call for the question unless there's a substitute motion.
I also just wanted to point out that while this may be new to Mayor Thorpe, it's been something that has been worked on for 10 plus years with Antioch, with Oakley, with Contra Costa County being represented, being aware that this was moving forward. And so, you know, it's not, I kind of wonder, is it creating confidence? Should we want to do future projects with other organizations, other cities that, well, you know, we can change our mind. And so people and cities investing in something for 10 years, financially, manpower, people power, and all of that, it is taking the pendulum in the opposite direction.
Okay. Mayor Thorpe correctly reminded me that I have not yet taken public comment on this item, so we will pause. I've noted the motion and the second. And again, lacking a substitute motion, we will call for the question on that. But at this time, if you'd like to speak, sir, I would just ask that you keep your comments brief, given that you had the opportunity on the previous item.
Yeah. Thank you. So I get the agenda item in terms of crime. What we're forgetting is that you're ascribing this to Antioch. This is an East County issue. As if moving it to a different station is going to completely eliminate all these problems. That's the same with our BART station. They're not my problems, they're the region's problems, irrespective of what happens. If someone gets transported, a homeless person gets transported to Sutter Health because they fake an incident, because they want housing, doesn't mean that they're an Antioch resident. It could be an Oakley resident, it could be a Pittsburgh resident, it could be someone who came transient from San Francisco. But you're blaming us, the city of Antioch, for a regional problem. Us. That's not fair, that's not right. And historically, we've constantly blamed people of color for these types of problems and then try to shift the responsibility to someone else. Antioch is the fastest growing city in eastern Contra Costa County, surpassed the rate of growth of all the entire Bay Area and of our county. So people continue to come there and choose to live there. So if the issue of safety is response, do I accept responsibility? Then have we failed? Absolutely, we have failed. If we haven't worked with you as partners to deal with some of these matters, we have failed. I own that responsibility as the mayor. But what I'm here to tell you is that we have made strides and we have moved forward, and we're more than happy to do whatever this body likes to ensure that that is a safe environment. In terms of region, of course I've looked at this as a regional issue because everybody likes to pile on us from a regional perspective and not accepting their own responsibility. We have sufficient parking. I invite all of you to come to downtown Antioch so that you can see the parking. Well, immediately adjacent to the park area, maybe a few spots, there's an entire parking lot a few steps away that services, and then a block away, there's City Hall in its entirety in terms of parking. We have sufficient parking. And I told you about the L Street corridor. More importantly, I think one thing that I don't know if I emphasize this or not, but we're literally all of our parking lots will have private security. That includes the park area where the Amtrak is at. So if it requires additional collaboration, we're more than happy to do that. But no one has ever put this question to us. No one has ever said we need funding for X, Y, or Z to happen. Nobody has asked us that. That's not right. It's not fair. What also hasn't happened, yes, I've been the mayor for 2 years. I've been on the city council for 4 years. Before I was the mayor, Sean Wright was the mayor. He no longer lives in Antioch. He hightailed it to Idaho. Now, I don't know if he had a conversation with Kevin, that's Kevin's nephew, with Kevin about whether or not they were going to shut down the station, but they didn't have a conversation with the rest of us. This is breaking news, not to me because I've been the mayor for 2 years. This is breaking news to the most senior person on our city council, Monica Wilson, who's been on the council for 12 years. This is breaking news to Federal Glover, who's been involved in East Contra Costa politics for decades. Decades. He represents this area. And Diane, love her to death because she represents me, but she represents the second wealthiest zip code in Eastern Contra Costa County, which is in Antioch, the 94521 zip code. When we're talking, thank you, Mr. Espinosa, for pointing out, I don't know where in the world the idea that somehow bringing down zero emissions means putting more people, the more parking lots you build, the more cars are going to be driven. The idea should be to get people to use public transportation. That's why we have Try My Ride, the on-demand transit program that we started at Tri-Delta Transit. Because we don't want people using a car in their last mile. We want them using on-demand service. We shouldn't be thinking about parking lots. We should be thinking about more on-demand service to ensure we get people to where they need to go. This is very unfair because we haven't been brought into the discussion. No one's asked us to make any fun. You've seen the financial commitments we've made in the millions of dollars. Why wouldn't we want to make a financial contribution to building up our Amtrak station? I don't know when this conversation started, however many years ago, but it didn't involve Antioch. In the conversations that I've had about the Oakley station opening up, I was also supportive. And 2 weeks ago, I realized it was at the expense. It is the expense. I'm sorry, it's the expense of Antioch. Because we have literally planned around this Amtrak station, particularly around transit-oriented development. So that is my public.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Do we have any other comments online? Folks wanting to speak on this item?
Yes, Andrew Becker has his hand raised.
Mr. Becker.
Thank you. I appreciate being able to address the board again. I wanted to say that this is an extremely frustrating situation as a community member. When we talk about single track, double track, siting, the limitations, the 6 mile limitations, it frustrates me how government puts us in these positions. If anybody knows the history of that right of way, they understand that at that exact location 35 years ago, we had siting right there. Santa Fe was using that siting. We had a station there. Before Amtrak, we had passenger service with siting there. Then when Amtrak came in and brought this passenger service to Antioch, there was this large capital improvement project that took away that siting and put in this beautiful platform with this beautiful little passenger structure that at the time was sufficient, but didn't grow with East Contra Costa County's growing needs. And it was neglected. And we as a community were forced to deal with that. And then there was no conversation brought to our community. There was no talks about Oakley. It's crazy how I, as a community member and a developer in Antioch, didn't even know that Oakley was building an Amtrak station. It's astounding how we are in our own individual little bubbles. And what does that translate to out in the real world? Now, a lack of services. So yes, there are opportunities for Antioch. I encourage the board to come out and to view that specific property. I encourage the city of Antioch and the mayor to work with BNSF and this authority and Amtrak to bring opportunities to that location, because there is still an opportunity for siting. And right next door on the market right now is a large 2.5 acre parcel that could be used mixed use for station amenities, parking, police services. But what it takes is forward-thinking individuals who are committed to our community, not committed to finding the solution for this problem, but committed to our community. And respectfully, for a supervisor who does represent a larger region and a portion of it is Antioch, where has that been for our community all of these years? We are not seeing those resources or that support. So I'm asking you, before you make some large decision that will affect our community greatly, come out and visit this site. Let's figure out if there are capital improvement projects, grants, state dollars, local match dollars, county dollars, Measure X county dollars, whatever it takes to cobble together some funding to bring adequate services, because there is an opportunity. Do not just abandon us with future hopes of coming back, because what we know is when you walk away from a problem, you are only neglecting it. You are not leaving it to get better. You are leaving it to fester. So I just want to leave it at that, but really, please come and visit this site. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Michael Barnbaum has his hand raised.
Mr. Barnbaum, go ahead. Are you muted, Mike?
Hello, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Hello? Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Hume, members and staff, and for the healthy discussion going on this topic. During the time, I've been thinking long and hard about a solution to the problem. I hear you, Executive Director Mortensen, about the safety for staff and the safety issues and what has been mentioned, that Amtrak can say no, that Amtrak does have the right to step in and, due to safety and other matters, not stop in a place. So I've been thinking long and hard about a solution, and it hit me about something that's happening in Sacramento when the service changes onto the Sacramento subdivision and the station in Midtown opens, which is going to require a realignment of a public transit route in that area for the riders that were intending to go to the historic Sacramento Valley station, and that the new or realigned bus route will take people from Midtown Station to Sacramento Valley Station so they could get service to the station they were intending. So I wanted to maybe put that together in a solution here. I agree that this should be brought back, but perhaps in an intent motion, I would recommend the change to the station from Antioch to Oakley, and a requirement that there be local public transit service for people that were intending to go to Antioch but no longer would be able to, that there would be an awaiting local transit bus route in that station at Oakley that would transport those passengers to their intended destination of the Antioch station, so as to get local service between the two stations when BNSF steps in and says you cannot have stops on the train so close to each other. So I think that there needs to be a partnership with the local transit agency in that area. I believe it's Tri-Delta Transit, but correct me if I'm wrong, that when this comes back, that they are to be required to transport between the two stations. And that's the solution I wanted to present and maybe have some people thinking about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. And my thought around bus rapid transit was a similar idea. Any other public comments at this time?
There are no.
If you don't mind.
I offered it to the mayor. I'll offer it to you, please.
Thank you. Mayor Thorpe is right that eastern Contra Costa County is one of the fastest growing areas in Contra Costa. What we seem to be leaving out of this conversation is the city of Brentwood. We talk about Antioch, and Antioch, and Antioch, and Antioch, and Antioch means this station. Well, Antioch is 110,000 people. Pittsburgh has about 75,000 people. Brentwood's getting close to 70,000 people. Antioch, Oakley is the smallest of the group at about 45, but with the potential growth up to 70,000 in the south. So there's a lot more going on here than just Antioch. For most of Antioch's growth is north of Highway 4 in the southeastern part of Antioch, which is closer to Highway 4, the new reroute of Highway 4 as it goes through the southeastern part of Antioch, separating Brentwood and Antioch in that part. For most of those people, the Oakley station is the closest station to them. The Antioch station is a little bit more difficult to get to. He mentioned some road improvements coming in there that may widen roads as they come off the freeway and whatnot, but it is still the furthest part for most of the growing areas of Antioch and Brentwood and Oakwood. So yeah, come on out, compare the two sites, look at them. It looks like everybody wants to put this off and everybody wants to take a tour. I think it'd be a great thing to do. Come look at the Oakley station under construction. Come look at what downtown Antioch has to offer. Look at the surrounding areas. Look at all of eastern Contra Costa County, which we're supporting here, and into the valley, and into the unincorporated areas in both Solano County and both Contra Costa County, and what's going to draw people on the train. We all know since COVID, we've all been suffering from ridership issues and ridership problems. How do we attract people to get on the train? And I think you will see with your own eyes that Oakley provides a better opportunity to increase ridership. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comments on this item?
There are no other comments.
Did you check outside? There might be some folks took time, they were listening to this online, they've now driven here from Oakley. They walked from Antioch, maybe caught the train, hopefully. All right, so in that case, I will go ahead and close public comment. We do have a motion in the second on the floor, but we'll continue the discussion, starting with Director Burgess and then going to Director Young.
So I don't know about making other motions to support this, but let me just also say, as Mayor Thorpe said, we do have Try My Ride, which is Tri-Delta Transit's answer to getting places that extra mile. We have eBart, which has only been open a couple years and has been extremely popular, and it wasn't all Antioch residents. It is a regional transportation, and people are coming from, Tracy, Mountain House, possibly Livermore, they're coming from Rio Vista and Solano County. They're coming from those different areas. And so, as was kind of recommended, how do we have something that allows people that would traditionally be using the train to get to the train? And we can do that very easily. I'm concerned that we're going to lose Amtrak if they say, well, we don't want to stop there anymore, because there's been a lot of concern on the safety issues. I would like to say that I don't want to necessarily decommission it forever. I would like to say, let's look at what the new technology allows. Let's, see if there can be dedicated parking. There is a lot of parking potential, but dedicated to rail would be, the thing to do and the safety part of it. But I do think that, my understanding of this, agency is to provide services for everybody, to get cars off the road and to, promote rail transportation. So I don't know if there's a way of, moving forward with what was recommended on the agenda. Each agency has different ways of doing it, but I do think we should be going forward. If the agency decides, if everybody decides to hold it back, I do want to, have EBART considered and all of the other transportation. East Contra Costa is called the cul-de-sac of the Bay Area. We have one of the longest commutes, and that means that people who live in East Contra Costa spend more time in their car getting to work and getting home, which means, an effect on our quality of life, our ability to volunteer, our ability to help our kids with their homework, to exercise, to, be active, more active. And so my goal here is not to challenge Antioch's ability to do their thing. I'm looking at it as a regional issue. And I do think that with Oakley being there, Antioch being there, and Brentwood coming online, most likely with some sort of BART kind of thing in the future, it distributes all the traffic, all of the transportation, and, Brentwood's growing, Oakley's growing, Discovery Bay, Bethel Island, Knightson, Byron, all of these unincorporated areas that are a significant population of East Contra Costa. And it provides counter commute to some that are a little further west.
Okay, if you'll provide me just a minute of discretion, since you asked me and I alluded to it, I will give you my understanding of Robert's Rules of Order, and I would look to council to correct me if it's incorrect. But if you were to move to approve staff recommendation, and there were a second, that would be considered a substitute motion, which would be voted on first prior to the original motion.
First of all, we do not go by Robert's Rules of Order.
Then never mind what I just said.
We go by Rosenberg. So you would have a motion to amend the motion that has been made, which would be, as I understand what you just said, then you would need a second for that motion to go first. If the motion is made and there is no second to amend the current motion, then that will fail, and then you move forward with the current.
Can I do that?
Okay.
Before you do that,
Yeah.
can you actually just repeat the first motion? Is it just to continue?
So let's touch on that for a second. The first motion was to continue, which I would ask the maker of the motion. And I don't know that this would meet the concerns of Director Burgess, but if we were going to choose to continue this item, because it would be a reversal, of course, that this body has already undertaken. I don't know what happened in Antioch with the city managers, with current council members, previous council members, but I do know that this body did go down and tour the Antioch site, and we did make the motion to pursue the Oakley station. And so there is a path that this body has taken that would now be reversed were we to go back to preserve the site at Antioch. Happy to explore that, but I would ask that the maker of the motion amend the motion, barring another amendment to the motion, to give staff specific direction on what deliverables we would like to see and a timeline on which we would like to revisit this, so that this isn't just hanging out there and nobody knows what we're actually going to be doing and money continues to be spent. With that, Director Young.
So I wasn't clear, continuing, just looking to other things, bringing it back, but when you said reversal, that's kind of something different. I mean, I wasn't looking at reversal. I was looking at more opportunity, time to look at some, I have other things to say, but just understanding the motion of what I'm weighing in on. Is this a continuation or is this a reversal? I think those are two different things.
And that is, you bring up a good question. Oakley And I would imagine the authority have invested money in this construction. Is it strictly Oakley is spending this money, or is it on the new station?
The Rail Commission, or the JPA, excuse me, is contributing towards the platform. So an item is coming to the May or June board meeting for your approval to continue the contribution towards the Oakley platform.
But we've already invested money in it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So my motion is to approve a resolution of the Governing Board of San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority approving the decommissioning of the Antioch-Pittsburgh San Joaquin Passenger Shop until it can meet certain requirements, and maybe that would be what we would wait and come back to, you know, as far as, but that would be, you know, having the technology of trains to be able to stop, having the parking that we would, you know, want to have so that we could grow, but not stopping Oakley from being able to do that, what we've already agreed for them to do.
Okay, so I'll note that, move to amend. Director Young, I believe you still had questions?
Yeah, I have some questions, because I'm not sure.
Okay.
Which way, so I mean, I'm kind of clear in my mind what I would like to see, but I'm not sure what fits in with what's been said. One thing was answered earlier, so I'll end with that part. And so just, you know, taking into account high speed, because Stacy brought in that very real detail of we have to give up the stop. So we can't just add another stop. However, Mr. Baumgarn, which I first met him at the SJJPA meeting years ago, and I think it's all things transportation everywhere I am, Mr. Baumgarn, anything but transportation, he's right there. But very thoughtful, so I appreciate that. And so, but the bus service, because in Tracy, we don't have a train, we don't have Amtrak that come through, but there's a bus. And there is that availability, like I went on a trip to Southern California, never again, I drive all the time to Southern California, I'm from there, but on the train, it was taking forever. I could have driven there and back, because it took me like 10, 11 hours to get to Ontario. But I was going with a group of kids, and so I was their chaperone for Key Club. And so it was convenient for their parents to drop them off at the station in Tracy, which a bus came and got us into this Stockton. It would have been much faster just to load us all up, go to Stockton and then to take the train down. So the option though, to have bus, I think bus service, especially even if it's a express kind of bus or whatever, using your local thing or whatever, to be able to connect, to at least have that in that area, so that you're not leaving the community high and dry. I think that's a really good opportunity to be able to bridge that gap and still focus on the station that's been in planning for more than 10 years. It's nothing more frustrating. It's nothing more frustrating than to be in the process, because those who weren't there were not there. And the decisions were made, and they were made, and those who heard it didn't. And, you know, and so, and it is, I mean, I know that hear me in my heart to know, you know, to come into a situation and not really know this was coming up. I know it's, like I said, at the very beginning, blindsiding. But for 10 years in the making, my whole thing before was just to make sure that we're addressing and not going backwards socioeconomically, the DEI, everything with Antioch. But I think there is a solution to be had to make sure that we're negating, not thinking about them, but also moving forward with the plan, because this board is going to change over time too, and the chair has a lot more history, and then you have more history, Vice Chair, as you move forward, to be able to continue as transportation, a lot of things, these take a lot of time, and I really appreciated an item earlier today that did part of the design so that you wouldn't miss timelines. And I mean, my city would never do that. They're gonna wait for the whole thing, and then it's gonna be zillions more, but anyhow, to look at that. So I think looking at the high speed is very important. The 10 years of progress, the option with the bus services or bus thing, I think there's some real solutions. And then lastly, safety. I asked about that earlier. I'm just wondering if that's coming back as a separate conversation, because no matter what happens there, whether they're transients from other places, and I know different people can take the bad rap or whatever. I grew up in Compton, don't play with me with all that. I know people take bad rap for stuff. And journalism was my undergrad degree in college. So how you present things, it becomes reality for a lot of people. So if with all that, I would like an answer on the safety, because otherwise I think that maybe need another item to come back. And I do have to catch a plane to DC shortly, so I'm gonna have to leave soon, but after this item. But I wanna make sure that if the continuation is just to look into other options and bring it back, because it's not that time sensitive as far as it gotta be done today, and it's not impeding on Oakley doing what it's been doing, because we're in the process, 10 years deep.
$6 million.
$6 million deep. I think all that's important. Continuity is so important. And so, but if the delay or the continuation is to consider alternatives or things that we can do to bridge gaps and make sure that there's definite communication within all the involved cities to make sure what we can do, then I'm for that. So if that's the first motion, then I'm good with that.
So let me do this, and I know you asked about the safety, but let me hold off on that just for a second. The Vice Chair wants to speak, but let me try and frame what I see as the overarching issue before us and sort of the implications that you're suggesting. Is we are currently moving down a path of building the Oakley Station that we heard has a completion date of fall, winter next year. We've heard that it's an either or situation from BNSF that we cannot have both stations operational. We cannot just leave the decommissioning of Antioch out there because we can't have people still seeing a sign that says this is a train station. They can't see a timetable that says the train will stop here at this time. There can't be confusion about where the train will be. So if we are to continue this item, then I think we have to make the decision whether or not we stop progress on Oakley, because I, for one, don't want to continue to expend funds towards something that might not be a reality. So that's a serious real world implication. And then if we make that decision, then we have to talk about what continuing service at the Antioch-Pittsburgh site would look like relative to safety, relative to the platform, et cetera. And so I think that there needs to be more than just well, let's talk about it some more there. I think we have to come back with deliverables. Vice Chair, do you have more?
Yeah, well, obviously, I don't want to, stop Oakley, I think that, it's going to serve well, but my main focus was to allow the public, you can't take a transportation between there. Obviously, my priority is also the safety of staff, right? But 150,000 people are going to be impacted. They didn't have, well, I feel like they didn't got the opportunity to address their motion, right? And I think, if we ever have to do another vote on decommissioning, that as staff and as a board, we have to do a better job of addressing it, because we have to be able to have that data, because even though, if we have it and then it takes a couple of years, like right now, it's going to happen over several years, and then we're going to have new electeds come to this board and express their feelings. Like say, look, we had all these meetings, just like any other project development that we have, right, in the city or in the county. We have to back up our data and present to the public why we're taking this step, right? And this is, I don't feel like this community got a chance to, express their views, whether it's going to be negative. And I don't, like I said, again, like I said, I don't want to stop Oakley and the progress. And like I said, but, like I understand her comments that we have to address the concerns, we will move forward in the future. Right now, we're not moving the commission until, like I said, we address all the, transportation, the public input as well. So.
Okay, so then the last thing I would add on to that is the whatever stopgap measure or whatever, we do, or excuse me, whatever could be done to provide that missing link of transportation from the old to the new, if that's the direction we continue down, is beyond the scope of this agency. That's something that Tri-Valley would have to work on, or whomever.
He is currently the chair of Tri-Delta Transit, and I'm on there, and we will, I would imagine, if that was requested, we would encourage staff to provide that type of a route, regardless of what happens.
Okay, so, but my point being is, we can't make that determination. We can say it's a good idea. I agree it's a good idea. So now back to procedure. We have an original motion. I I believe, what's that? Oh, you want to hear from the safety?
Well, and I'm
Okay.
unclear exactly what we're.
So I'm gonna get to that.
Okay. Because there was something said about we gotta go to the city council, we were bringing in state legislators, like that's a different scope of.
Okay,
what we
so
normally do with-
maybe let's start with safety
Okay.
and then we'll go to the procedural.
Okay, Inspector Calderon from Amtrak.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Doug Calcagno. I'm the inspector with Amtrak Police. I'm a retired Bay Area law enforcement officer. I spent 21 years in San Leandro and then 5 years in Union City before I retired. And 3 years ago, I started working for Amtrak. So just for context on my law enforcement perspective for the last 8 years. Mayor Thorpe, you brought up, I think one of the first comments you were bringing up was the unhoused population. And I can speak, like, as a whole, I can speak throughout the nation what we see, and I can speak locally on what we see. And with our unhoused population, with lack of resources that are in many cities, what we see, based on the fact that they're unhoused, whether they're on drugs or mentally ill, in communities where we have a higher population of the unhoused, it does impact our system in that we have an open system. We don't have turnstiles, we have platforms. Our conductors are the ones that check tickets of our riders. It was mentioned that we do a certain style in Antioch because it's called streetcarring, just so the train's not in movement by the time they get to a customer that may not have a ticket. What we're finding on the assault side, which is the bigger crime that we're concerned with because our staff are being assaulted. And we're doing a couple of things on the Amtrak side in terms of training, de-escalation, how to interact with possibly mentally ill person or somebody that's on drugs. So there's steps that we're taking on that end. But in areas where we do have higher populations of in-house, we do see higher levels of fare evasion, of kind of the lower level issues of crime. And then when they get confronted either on the platforms or on our trains, we're seeing a confrontation that leads to assault. And so for our Amtrak side of the house, we're trying to do things to mitigate that as much as possible, train our folks to do the best they can to de-escalate it and not get to a situation, recognize pre-assaultive behavior, and then call local and or APD based on where the crime is occurring. So that's just kind of a real broad, stroke of the paintbrush regarding the unhoused population. Cities that are offering and social services that are offering programs to help combat that and reduce the levels, the numbers of the unhoused population. In a lot of our areas where our platforms are located, our stations are located, it does do great things for us. Amtrak Police does work with the local PDs for that. And I will say Antioch Police have been great partners with us. We partner with a lot of local agencies. We rely on them a great deal. And Antioch is a really good partner for us. But that platform has seen some issues based on where the homeless encampment was located. That has been cleared out, which is great. But that was kind of the issues that we were seeing there and what we see generally with the in-house population.
Okay, did you have further questions?
So my not anymore. I mean, I appreciate the partnerships and the training and all that. I just don't know what we as a board, as far as safety addressing that, maybe that's just Amtrak. If there was going to be another item on that, to really just address that, to focus and talk about safety.
We can do that. We can do that.
Thank you.
Real quick question. I know that, like I said, we work with the cities, but also just here, we would have had a track record of Amtrak working with the local police of Antioch. And like I said, a record of all incidents, and they try to clear all the homeless there on the station. I think that would, help support this case, right? But we've never received any information regarding whether the city was irresponsible or not to, Amtrak's request for, service in the stations. And for the future, I don't know.
And I think this board and the JPA partners that we work with are working with the city for that. And it's a big issue because, being housed is one thing, and that's great. And we do rely on local That's where the resources are coming from, is from local cities. But then during the day, if they're addicted to drugs or they're mentally ill and they're not in their hotel room, they're in the city, and then they're in areas where we end up having to, and they want to train, they want to go from location to location because we're open. It's a fairly easy opportunity to do that, and then based on the addiction or mental illness, that they get combated or turn into crisis, and that's what we're trying to eliminate as much as possible, because we do within assaults have been increasing, and we're noticing that everywhere.
Actually, we're doing this, because even in the Merced station, we have homeless, and I just don't want to hear that. Like I said, we had issues in which I never hear about, and I haven't ever heard any issues with the homeless, even though they hang around there. So I just don't want to hear like, oh, your Merced station's being decommissioned that, when I never heard about that.
Thank you. And I would want to state too that it's not, homelessness isn't a crime. It's not every homeless person or unhoused person that is doing this, but there is a correlation between not being housed and then the causation for that in terms of mental illness or addiction. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, so we have one member who needs to catch a plane. I've had to cancel 2 different meetings by text already, so.
So is Antioch standing out in some way to other stations, kind of to his point on Merced? Is it standing out to other stations, and have you made that point to the law enforcement locally, if it is?
I have not addressed it with Antioch saying that you do stand out. There are issues in Antioch that we don't have in other platforms or stations that are on the network, but we do have other issues similar to that, again, to populations that have a higher number of unhoused. California has a problem with this. It's a problem in many different states. New York is another one that we deal with a lot. But out here, yeah, I mean, the local departments know it too, because we're looking at it all the time.
And does Amtrak cancel places when they feel it's an issue?
I'm not aware of either that have been canceled. I guess, what do you call the quick stop, the?
Streetcar anywhere, they just open one door. If they open up all the doors on platforms and everyone goes, then the train is in motion before they can get to all the people and check for tickets. So they'll try to stand at the one door that's open and check for tickets before they get on the train. When there's a problem on the train, we have to stop if there's delays and there's costs associated to any train delay.
Okay, thank you. Procedure. I believe we have lost the original seconder of the motion. So is I don't forget what you call it, it's not a substitute motion. The amendment, the request for amendment, is that made of the maker?
That is, if I may, I know this could be a quagmire, I'll try to make it simple. The motion and the second was to continue the item.
Yes.
To another meeting. The additional motion that was made was a request to amend, to make the decision that staff recommended, but bring back the additional issues of addressing service in Antioch. My understanding that the maker of the motion has declined that amendment.
Yes.
Thus, at this point in time, now there's the possibility of doing a substitution motion. So if you were to make that motion now again, and there was a second, that motion would go first. In the event that the substitution motion either does not have a second or fails to gain a majority on the vote, then we go back to the original motion and vote on that. Does that make sense? And I'm happy to answer any procedural questions.
So I need to change the motion that I made, or
You would
need to make a motion recommending staff.
So I will make a recommendation that we approve a resolution of the Governing Board of San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority approving the decommissioning of Antioch Pittsburgh San Joaquin passenger stop, with the direction to come back with ways to possibly reopen it in the future, allowing the investments and work that has already been done to open the Oakley station to continue.
I would ask the maker of the motion, would you be willing to amend to also add in, given the fact that we have some lead time to third, potentially fourth quarter of next year, that we do that outreach before this switch happens?
Yes.
So that we come into the community and
Yes.
everybody is, so you amend the motion now?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
I'm just trying to understand.
This is the most contentious item that's ever come before in my entire time.
On one conversation, I'm sorry, maybe it's me, okay, so to go forward with this, and then while you're looking at that, I'm just trying to see if we have a little bit of lead time, how is that different from continuing it, so that we just come back and see how it's going off?
I would imagine that if we don't, all the investments that are going forward by this agency and the city could be endangered.
That's kind of why I asked the question earlier, would that impede any of the progress while they're going down the line for that? And I thought the answer was no.
So it won't impede the, Antioch or Oakley will not be stopped from moving forward, but the challenge is the dollars. So we're working on BNSS timeline and they provided us the dollar amount. That can go up if we do not move forward with the Oakley path.
Okay.
I'm gonna add to that. I don't know that that's true with BNSF in terms of adding a station without removing a station. They have a one-for-one policy.
Yes.
And have not granted a waiver on this.
So if we don't do
Yes.
this, then they will pause, you can't move forward then.
Oakley cannot open.
That's just for opening. And you don't want to build something that's complicated, but I'm just wondering if it was continued, okay, in that case, how soon could it come back for us to really look at some real things? Would that be like next meeting?
Okay, so I would like to ask a question on that, again procedurally. The original motion was just a motion to continue. I would assume that implies to a date uncertain.
That's correct.
Okay. How do you set parameters in order that we are able to be timely if the original motion was to a date uncertain and the original seconder is no longer in the meeting? So we can't clarify that to be a date certain, correct?
You could, the maker of the motion could amend the motion.
And that would
but you
require a
want-
new second.
That's correct.
Okay.
Could
So
the
our
motion
options-
Continue, could part of it be continue the item, but act to continue moving forward with Oakley?
They can. One other solution to the problem that you just identified is staff could state that they will bring this back at your May meeting.
Okay, so here's the issue that I'm having, is I feel like, and I'll use the expression that the horse has left the barn rather than the train has left the station. But I feel like we are already in motion on something. And to pause it, I'm not sure what we're getting out of that pause. We either have to choose to continue to stay on the track that we're on, or to reverse course and recommit to a current situation, and I don't know what that recommittal would look like.
Yeah, my
And so-
motion is to continue down the track
Yeah,
and to find ways that we could include Antioch in the future.
I get that, I'll second that. I mean, I get that, I don't want it to be indefinite, because if we're not gonna, that's why, I mean, I'm thinking of the next meeting, the next 2 meetings to be able to, but if we can find things and it's still, we still have time before we start taking down every sign and every post. I think that this signals continuation of the process as funding becomes available, as things are being built, but at the same time, we're actively working to see some undisclosures. I don't want to leave any time drive, but when we're looking at the overall regional one stop versus two, and it's just gonna mess up several patterns. There's so many things, if you ever see Stacy's things of all these different lines everywhere, it's a lot moving, it's a lot of moving parts. And just for continuation, just indefinite, I don't think that that's gonna be profitable I think that
Okay.
we have to.
Do you have a motion and a second?
So I have a motion and a second. I'm going to restate it for the benefit of the folks online. As I understand the motion is this: it is to approve the resolution of the governing board of the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority approving the decommissioning of Antioch Pittsburgh San Joaquin's passenger stop, encouraging staff to work with other agencies to provide for alternative transportation options between the existing Antioch station and the new Oakley station. And this I'm going to clarify to make sure this is part of the motion too, and not precluding recommissioning an Antioch station in the future insofar as technology and or our rail partners.
Correct. I think there's one more part, and that's to make sure that the thing that Cynthia said about moving forward with
Yes.
Oakland. Is that, or was that?
I think that was part of the first, no, that was part of the first thing that I said. Is that we are essentially, with this motion, we are committing to Oakley as the future station with the idea of hopefully reopening Antioch in the future.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
I will call for the question on the substitute motion, and we'll see how that fares. Roll call vote, please.
Excuse me, Directors, Rodriguez,
No. I believe he's still here.
and Halbert, I believe he left, Burgess,
Yes.
Quintero. He left, Shiplian,
Aye.
Young,
Yes.
Espinosa,
No.
Verboen,
Yes.
Is Director Chiesa?
Cannot vote. He cannot vote.
But he can't vote. Okay. Aye.
Thank you.
The motion failed. You needed a majority of the board, and you got, maybe check that.
Six.
I missed one name. I have Rodriguez, Burgess, Sheplian, Verboen, Hume,
Young.
Young.
So we do have six. My apologies. Lawyers are here now. So you have six yes. The motion passes.
The motion passes. Okay. Mr. Mayor, I thank you for your time today, and we commit to doing whatever we can do to help you communicate with your community and provide that transportation. Oh,
I think there's work to do with the ferry service and the rail, and I think there's something that we could do there.
okay.
Some kind of bus connection that still.
We will have a bus connection too.
Appreciate all the robust conversation. I need to take a short recess.
Me too.
Maybe everybody takes that short recess. And then we'll come back and
Yeah.
Your shot game is strong.
I never understood this as that I just work.
Oh, no, I'm.
Yeah, no, today, I don't know.
And we had a little bit of a snafu there as far as how the votes were counted. And so the previous vote count was recorded incorrectly. And so in order to consider that motion, we would need a motion to reconsider from somebody who voted in the negative, in the opposition.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Vice Chair.
If we reconsider, does that put a hindrance on the movement moving forward on the Oakley station? Stacy?
I think you're asking to reconsider the same vote.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Since it didn't pass, does that put us into any issues?
In a way, yes, because the board, part of the motion was to, in essence, reinforce the JPA support of the project in Oakland. And a vote of no could be interpreted as a change in the direction of the mine.
When's our, I can't remember what that, when's our next meeting?
May.
I was thinking about, even though it didn't pass 5-2, right? So if I made a motion to reconsider my vote, so that it can pass, so obviously I don't want to put this, progress moving forward. But at the same time, I want to allow time for the city of Oakley, the city of Anaheim to, make it better. So I don't feel like they received the fair public input from the residents there. But I don't want to stop progress. We have a big investment already moving forward. So that's why I was saying, I said if I could make a motion to continue, like thinking about just to consider my motion and going to approve.
So your motion would be to reconsider
My vote and vote, just
the prior motion.
Correct.
Okay, so we need a second to the motion to reconsideration, which can be by anyone.
I'll second that.
Okay,
So procedurally, you're gonna vote on whether to reconsider. If the majority votes yes, then you'll do the motion all over again.
Correct.
so this initial vote is just to reconsider.
That's to whether you're going to reconsider.
Does that require a majority of the body or a majority of the vote?
Indeed, sir.
Okay. All right, so for everyone online, the motion was to reconsider the previous vote. It was seconded. And then once that motion, if it passes, then we will hear the original motion again. Roll call, please.
Directors, Rodriguez. He's left the meeting. Burgess.
Yes.
Quintero. Shiklian. Supervisor Shiklian. I see that you're on, but I believe you're on mute. Young.
Yes.
Espinosa.
Yes.
Verboen.
Yes, I think.
Hume.
Aye.
So I'm circling back, Shiklian.
Aye.
That is a sufficient number of votes to reconsider the item.
Now the vote is taking place again on the original motion.
Okay, so now we will have a vote on the original motion, which is to approve the resolution, decommission the station with the caveat that we will work to support transportation options through Tri-Delta or other agencies and community outreach. I'm reconsidering, that's it.
But I want to allow Antioch to have ways, the future station, if it's possible. Like I say, it's a hard position, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. That's what I'm changing.
And I would like to, I don't want to make it more complicated, but maybe we can entertain a motion at another time that says we have certain expectations of staff for outreach in any type of future type of thing, that doesn't need to be added to this right now, but I'd like to put that.
Okay, so to be clear for everyone online, this is a reconsideration. It's a revote of the original motion. So we voted to reconsider that item. We are now reconsidering the item. The original motion that was voted upon previously is what is in question. Roll call, please.
Directors, Fergus,
Yes.
Supervisor Shiplian,
Yes.
yeah,
I don't want to mess with process, but was there a first and a second?
Yes.
Of the new one?
No,
You don't need a first and second.
Correct.
You say you start all over. Just want to make sure. Message went out yet.
Espinosa,
Yes.
Verboen,
Yes.
and Cherokee.
Aye.
motion passes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your patience in that. And I know we've lost some board members. The rest of the items are informational, and so we'll proceed on to item number 10, the update on Caltrans venture car agreements with Caltrans and Amtrak. Mr. Schmidt, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yours.
Afternoon, directors. Next slide, please. So staff has been working with Amtrak and Caltrans on these agreements for about 3 years now regarding the venture cars. So as you can see on the screen, the Amtrak agreements, there's 5 agreements that we've been working on. We are pretty well finished with them all. We are in final draft form and they're under review. We anticipate them being signed later, early next month in April. So that's very exciting. What that will do, it will allow the venture cars to be transferred from the San Joaquin JPA to Amtrak. There's a procedure in that that's identified in that agreement. Also, we have agreements with Caltrans, which is our interagency transfer agreement, which there's also a procedure in there to get the vehicles that are purchased by Caltrans and owned by Caltrans to transfer them to the JPA before we transfer them to Amtrak for daily operations. So there's procedures in both the agreements to get the cars from one place to the other to make it get things more complicated. Next slide. So with that said, there are challenges that we're facing with the venture cars. One is the accessibility. They are single level vehicles that have a high floor like the common cars. Currently, the only way to get in the vehicles is through a wheelchair lift. We do have mini high platforms that we've bolted down on the Burlington Northern Santa Fe alignment. Once a bridge plate has been developed to go from the train to the mini high platform. That has not been completed yet. That is currently in design by Caltrans. Additionally, we have some quality issues with the vehicles. All right, sorry, I just heard some echoes there. So there are quality issues with the vehicles currently. An example, Illinois has had these vehicles in service or tried to put them in service for the past year, and none of the vehicles have gone 30 days, have completed a 30-day failure-free test. So they've been pulling these vehicles in and out of service. Which is concerning. But the last one, it's the technical specification compliance. There are some issues with the technical specifications and compliance of the vehicles. One I'll bring up is the water panels. It's been identified previously. There are some non-compliant fixtures in there. So, and one thing just to note to the board is that we have had discussions with our legal counsel as well as our insurance providers, and their recommendation is that we do not accept the vehicles until such time that all the technical specification compliances are mitigated and completed. So, while we have the agreements in place, we still have outstanding items before this board can take receipt of the vehicles and then actually get them in service. So just as a timeline, to give the board an idea of this, right now, from everything I've heard from our Caltrans folks and their inspectors, we'd be looking at potentially getting them everything completed by the end of August of this year. Then there'd be going through some test runs along the corridors for the crews, the operating crews to get used to, how they operate, their spots for all the stations to get passengers on and off, and then we would put them in service. So sometime in probably around the first part of October is the best case right now that I can see that they'd be put in service. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on this item.
All right, thank you. Any questions from directors in the room? Any questions from the directors online? Okay, hearing none, we will move on then. This was an informational item. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. On to item number 11, Valley Rail Program Schedule Update.
Well, I need to take a big breath here. There's a lot to tell you, but we don't have very much time. So I'll be tag teaming this with Lawrence Farrell, who you met earlier on the capital program side. He's leading our program delivery effort on what's pretty monumental for the East Bay and the Valley in terms of passenger rail investment. We're inching up towards a $2 billion program, which really rivals something that LA Metro would do, BART would do, or the Silicon Valley Transportation Authority that is conducting a BART expansion. So large program. Next slide. So you're very familiar with a lot of supply chain issues related to COVID. There's been a lot of talk about material pricing, material availability, and delays, and all of those factoring into costs. So those are well understood across many different industries, not just rail. So anybody constructing or buying anything has run into this. But there's a couple other factors really that for us, given the size of this program, have more of an impact on the program than these other issues. Next slide. And one of those was the addition of the Stockton Diamond. Stockton Diamond is a bottleneck right south of here that really was blocking freight train expansion, access to the Port of Oakland, and the Amtrak San Joaquin's and ACE service. There is a choke point that really it's an I go, you go kind of situation, which when you have 4-mile trains coming into a place where they have to stop, you're blocking all of the community crossings in both directions. And so really, significant expansion was not possible without the Stockton Diamond, and the stars aligned with enough support from the state, federal government, the Bay Area, Sacramento, all of the Valley. We lined up behind this project because that has far-reaching impacts and improvements beyond just the Stockton area. Next slide. Also to note, it's a $300 million project on its own, which is one of the biggest transportation projects that we've had in this county, probably ever. But the scale of that requires significant review by Union Pacific and Burlington Northern Santa Fe. UP is going to fly up and over the Burlington Northern Santa Fe, and there will be pier structures that will go on the BNSF right away. So both of them have a very active design review role, but they have finite resources to look at mega projects, right? They didn't go out and hire a bunch of people to review the structures, the signals, the track work, the soils. They have the same number of people that they've always had. It's just we have this giant project that we need them to review. And that's creating one of the issues that we're facing. Next slide. This is the rendition that most of you have seen. Supervisor Burgess, a little new. This is what the flyover structure would look like. This is just south of here, about 3/4 of a mile. Next slide. Another kind of 1A piece is when the state of California largely funded this effort, they wanted us to make sure it was future-proofed. And what does that mean? It means let's build everything simultaneously. And originally we were thinking, we'll first build this little expansion down to Modesto, and then later we'll add these other pieces. But the state provided a lot of money. Do it all at once, right? Get every community on the map. Let's get this thing going. The railroads also required a center platform, which is a technical term that I'll show you in a minute, but it basically means more infrastructure so that trains can come in any direction, stop on any platform, on any side, so passengers go one place and can board either direction. You don't have to worry about running around and getting on the other side of the tracks. It's all in one spot. Well, that requires a lot of infrastructure that you'll see. And then the corridors needed to be double tracked. And that takes a lot of time to engineer. When you do a few, it's okay. We can project, oh, how much time will that take? When you do 46, which is what we're doing all at one time, that creates a different dilemma. And then obviously the diamond, putting the diamond in with all of these pieces. So I'll run you through what the future proofing looks like. Don't say that fast. Next slide. So originally you used to walk up to the side and you just sort of step on the train. Future proofing puts it in the center platform, and we need to get people to it. And so you'll either need a tunnel structure, which not everybody's wild about. We have very few of those. The Fairfield Vacaville station is like that for the Capitol corridor. And it's nice, it's open, it looks sort of pavilion-like. So there's a new style of tunnel in town. But most of our access points will be what you see here. You could run to the next slide. A larger infrastructure, elevator banks with duplication, so anybody that can't move as fast to get onto the platform has an accessible way to get there that's just as fast as people that have to walk the stairs. And this is key, setting it up for accessibility for everyone right out the gate, rather than coming through later and trying to add it in, or we would disrupt the service, tear off the track. Next slide. This is just another view of what it looks like. You also have an infrastructure on the platform to disperse passengers who are able to take the stairs to the outer areas, and then take the passengers who have less mobility right down to the boarding locations. Next slide. And this is what the more sort of pavilion style tunnel access looks like. The stairs are wide, the tunnel is usually wide and well lit, and it's short. So it's not like the one in Old Sacramento where you feel like you're walking a really long time. Next slide. And then just a gentle slope that you can do when you have a tunnel, because you have less clearance. So you can, all people can take the same path to get to the boarding location. Next.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there a required amount of time between stops? I mean, because I have BART in my area, so I always that's what I'm kind of picturing. But you know, the trains don't run as fast as often, and so when you're talking about trying to meet a train, getting off one train to another, that's not typically what you're doing, right?
It will be though in the future. So that's why these center platforms are so important, because that will be more.
So it'll be done on the side of scheduling and not leaving to give certain train passengers. Okay.
In fact, we have that for the service coming from further south in the valley, say Modesto and Syracuse and ultimately Merced. There are some trains that will come up and actually transfer in Lathrop to an H train that's coming down from Stockton.
Right.
Going, yeah, so we'll see that probably in the first few years, but it'll take some time as the frequencies start coming off high-speed rail, where we're meeting more of those trains. We'll see more of those platforms.
Thanks for letting me cut.
Yes, no worries. So I'm going to turn this over to Lawrence here in a second, but really what we want to talk to you about is the simultaneousness of these large number of reviews, and how we originally scheduled the program based on what any given consultant would tell you. This is how long this project will take to design, construct, etc. And even the railroads and the utilities. Oh, you've got a project, this is how long it will take. It's a whole different ballgame when you ask them to do 46 at one time. So I'm going to pass it off to you, Lawrence, to take it home on the impacts of this.
Yes, thank you. Next slide, please. So as stated by the director, over the last several months, we've conducted an extensive schedule analysis. And due to that schedule analysis, we simply linked all the projects together, and then we were able to determine, do an analysis and determine a more accurate and high confidence schedule that we think NSS we think accurately displays the completion dates. Next slide, please. So yes, this is I want to talk about the delay. So there's about 3 factors that are causing the delays, and you can see the pie chart in front of you. The 3 factors are they're divided between Class 1 railroad reviews, our own delay in review times, and the utilities. And you can see the percentages before you. They're approximately 45% for the Class 1 railroads, 35% for the utilities, and 20% as our own delays for review. And as stated by the director, this simply comes because the amount of projects. We started with 2 projects, we're at 29, and we're moving to 42, 43. And these projects, essentially each project has 3 submissions. a civil package, a structures package, and a track package. And each one of these packages can be literally 400 to 500 pages long. Obviously, when you're dealing with something with the Stockton Diamond, a bridge that extends over major roadways, has major impacts, you're literally talking about a package over 400 pages. And again, a lot of these packages go back and forth. So what that happens is that causes multiple simultaneous reviews among the utilities, the railroads, and even us. And unlike the commission, which can go out and hire more consultants, the utilities and the railroads, they're somewhat limited in the specificity of that of their skill set, right? There's only so many people that work at a Class 1 railroad and that know that skill set. And what you get is something that's called the funnel effect, and that's what I like to call it, because no matter how big you make that pan, and I would say the commission is the pan, and we can hire consultants and we can hire people to assist us. The chute is a finite diameter, and the chute is the Class 1 railroads and the utilities. So again, what you physically have is water backing up in the pan. So it doesn't matter how big the pan is, it just matters how big the chute is. And again, the more water you get in the pan, it just backs up. And this is really shown by the equation to the right. So the equation to the right is called the communication channels formula. If you Google this formula, this will come up, first like 30 things. This is from the Project Management Institute. Just want to source this formula. And what this shows is when you have, what this shows, big picture is the communication channels or the decisions and how they affect each other increase exponentially as the number of projects increase. So if you only have 2 projects, you can see for 2 projects, there's 1 communication channel. And what that means is everything is binary. If we're working with a railroad, we can go back and forth. They can ask the commission a question. The commission can ask them a question. It is very linear. It's a linear equation. It's binary. It's an on and off light switch. But what happens is as you move to 42 projects, you get 861 communication channels. And what that really means is you have a project in Fremont might affect a project in Sacramento. And I'll give you an actual real world example that happened a month ago. So we are doing.
Well, it'll have to be a fast example.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had a project.
Actually, they may not need it. How about this? I bet I think they get it. I'm watching the faces. They get it.
Okay, next slide, please. Next slide. Got that. Thank you. So what this shows is as the projects affect each other, what our analysis has shown is we've gone from 24 months to complete a design to 39 months. And you can see the delays up there. And what you just see, I just want to highlight, this is a typical station. Some may take a little more, some may take a little less, but this is a typical station. And just want to highlight for clarity, the dates you see on top of this, basically the schedule, they're representative dates, right? If a station starts at a later date, all you would do is slide this schedule to the appropriate date. But this is the analysis we did. We have a high confidence that this is accurate. And most importantly, we also have repetitive submittal reviews in this process. So we've built an internal contingency. And that's the real takeaway. We've built an internal contingency in this process. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so let's go next slide. I'll roll you through. What does this mean after all that? Really, if we have to build all the infrastructure that we've got planned right now, all the projects that all the railroads have said we need before we start, we push about 2 years. So instead of starting at the end of 2024, we start at the end of 2026. Now we do have some stations in between that are ready earlier. Midtown will be ready earlier. Looks like Manteca will be ready earlier. We're trying to see what that could mean in terms of a modified service start. The key thing is the endpoints, the Thomas in the north and Ceres initially in the south. Those kind of dictate our ability to run the whole length. If they're not there, we can't run. So if you, Megan, just go ahead and click through. I just want you to see these are the progressions and just sort of clicking through. We have a plan and it's all on schedule. Service gets added, a little more service gets added. Go ahead and keep clicking through until we get to one with a, this is where we're headed. This is when whatever happens on the high-speed rail network initially opens up. This assumes it's in Madeira, and then these are the frequencies that we would be targeting to have there to take that spigot, right? It's a big water spigot that turns on, and our few trains today can't take them all. So we need everything that the BNSF can give us, everything that the UP can give us, but we're tailoring our expansion, the major part, to match what's gonna happen on that high-speed rail network. We'll do some of the early smaller expansions for Ace and San Joaquin's because we planned on them either way. But the bulk of these will be towards the end in the 2030 timeframe for high-speed rail. And with that, I would stop if there's any questions. And if not, I do want David to have a chance to talk about the vending machines because a couple of our audience members have waited to hear about that.
Okay, and so this schematic shows the Space Invaders gunship being completed. On to item number 12, San Joaquin Service Update. Mr. Lepari.
Thank you, Chair and board members. I'll keep the beginning of this brief, and I'll get to the detail on the vending. If you go to the next slide, I had planned to talk about performance, the weather-related issues, and vending. So we'll run through that pretty quickly. If you go to the next slide, here is our performance through January of this federal fiscal year. We're sitting at about 81% of normal FY19 on ridership, and about 90% normal on revenue. We had a really great October that was a little bit outside of our normal recovery trend, and then we drifted a little bit down in some of the winter months. We had planned on that happening due to the potential rise in COVID cases, which we did see a little bit of that, as well as weather-related impacts. So both of those things came to fruition. We were sort of planned for that. If you go to the next slide. Graphically, this is sort of what it looks like so far this fiscal year from a recovery perspective. February is about a little bit above January, even with the weather-related impacts. And then March, we're struggling in March so far with some of the weather stuff that I'll show you in a second. Go to the next slide. But from a California perspective, we still are the most recovered service in California. Go to the next slide. As I mentioned before, weather-related impacts. So we've been, just like everybody else, the weather here in California, which has been a little bit unprecedented, at least in my time, has been a challenge. We've had several times where the Grapevine has been closed due to snow. You can see the dates there. And as we all know, like our buses going over the Grapevine are a huge part of what the San Joaquin's does. So not having that available is a challenge. There's certainly been some issues in the Sierras with snow, as well as other things impacted by the snow and weather. You can see the suspensions on YARTs and our service into Yosemite there. And then more recently, the flooding in the southern San Joaquin Valley has also been quite challenging. And we've been running limited or no service south of Fresno. And you can see the dates there. Now, today we were able to bring back a portion of normal service today, and we're anticipating bringing just completely normal service tomorrow. But there is rain planned for early next week, so we'll have to watch that pretty closely. You go to the next slide. These are just some pictures of some of the weather. Like this is the Grapevine. Go to the next slide. That is the tunnel, and that is how high the snow is in Yosemite. So it's pretty incredible. Go to the next slide. Here's some of the flooding in the southern part of the corridor. You go to the next slide. And this is the track. So the track is still going across the middle of the picture, and there's just a hole underneath it where it's been washed away. That is sort of what we've been dealing with in the southern part of the corridor. BNSF has been out there reshoring the tracks, certifying them to be safe, running tonnage over them just like they normally would. So like as I mentioned, for this particular issue, though we've been impacted recently, starting tomorrow, we should be back to normal, completely normal service. And then we'll have to see what early next week brings. You go to the next slide. So on the venture cars, Caltrans purchased 49 of these cars. They were initially purchased with the Cafe car, but then that was changed by Caltrans in consultation with SJJPA staff to find a different sort of food service delivery model, to try something different. And that new service delivery model was vending. You know, the next slide. The way this was meant to work out is there's 14 of those 49 cars that are classified as vending cars. The way that it's meant to work is that there's going to be three machines per car. Those are the 4 locations. So 3 of those locations will be filled with a vending machine. And then we would operate 2 of these cars per train. So you have 2 food service cars, unlike today where you just have 1. Go to the next slide. A component of the vending that we've been talking to you about over the past several meetings is sort of like constantly assessing the viability of the service. Well, we advanced that and released a passenger experience survey to passengers to sort of get ahead of like, well, what are they expecting from the service? You go to the next slide. So we released it on February 24th through all of our own channels. We even had staff at stations handing out things to try to get people to respond. As of yesterday, we were at about 253 responses. You know, the next slide. This is who responded. So the largest respondent pool at about 37% were people who ride a few times a year, which that matches our normal ridership. 38% of our ridership is just kind of riding a couple of times a year. And then there are a few people that hadn't traveled in the past year, and we actually controlled them out in a couple of the later slides, and I'll mention when we did that. But then, 15% about 1 to 2 times a month. And then 70% of the respondent pool actually took a throughway bus, which I think is an important part of our ridership, an important thing to know. Go to the next slide. When we asked them, well, what are the most important amenities to you? Free Wi-Fi and comfortable seating were the top 2, followed by restrooms, which I'm sure we all appreciate. And then food service was 4th. So food service does rank like pretty high on people's what they think is important from an amenity perspective on the San Joaquins. You know, the next slide. When we asked them more about like, well, how would you rank some of the travel experience factors, or sort of like what makes you decide to ride the train? Ticket price, OTP, and schedule really lead the pack in terms of what's important to these respondents. Food service only about 7%. So though food service is important, there are other factors that factor into how people make the decision to ride the San Joaquins. And ticket prices, was not a surprise to us, we knowing sort of the population that's riding the service. You go to the next slide. And then to describe their cafe use, most, 40%, the largest respondent pool use it every time they ride the train, and 20% make occasional trips. So that's like 60%, that have some familiarity, that are using it on a pretty regular basis. So it's a pretty important thing for people on board. Go to the next slide. And then we sort of asked them a question about how, like, giving them different scenarios and what would make sense for the future. I think the biggest thing to note here is that 40% of people said, well, they'd be very disappointed if the cafe car went away. But I think also important to note is that 23% said they would actually prefer cheaper fares if that meant there were no cafe cars. So it's sort of a balancing act here, right? Like people don't really want their fares to go up. The cheaper fares is really important to the San Joaquin's passengers. So that's not really a part of the discussion, but the cafe is really important to passengers. I think that with this vending concept, it's really important that we try to overcome some of the things that people think about when they think about a vending service and what it might not bring. Let's go to the next slide. So in response to some of this data, I think there are some key considerations for this project. One is that we have to overcome, as I mentioned before, the stereotypical bad vending experience. When we've given this presentation, everyone says, well, what happens when the machine eats my money, right? Which is, I think, what all of us think of when we think of vending. So we really do need to have proper KPIs in place for the uptime of the service, a process for rectifying issues when they do occur, as well as having a well-stocked service. So that those machines are going to be filled with something when you get on board. We also have to continue this continuous feedback loop, right? Like as the service goes into operation, especially with the first train, we'll probably only have one train that operates on it, at least initially, making sure that we're asking people, well, how are you experiencing it? And whether or not we can make adjustments like as the program is being rolled out. And then continuing the continuous improvement plan, optimizations that can be made. Maybe that's products. We already heard from Dan earlier that people want to have local products in the vending machines, augmenting machines by prototyping new types of machines that fill the gaps, like beer and wine vending machines, which are something that the market is exploring, as well as augmenting service potentially with an attended service on busy trains. That's something that we're exploring as well. But then also, as the feedback comes in and we see the performance, perhaps being prepared to reverse course at some point and say, hey, we tried it, it didn't work and moved to a different solution. That's the end of my presentation. Anyone has any questions, happy to answer them.
All right, very good. Any questions from board members? Any questions from board members online? Any public comments on this item?
There are no public comments.
Very good. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Moving on to item number 13. Any board members have comments for the good of the order?
I've spoken enough today.
Okay.
It was a hard decision for me, but it's move forward. I think it's the best.
Any board members online have any comments? Okay, hearing none. Executive Director waives her report. Love to hear that. Thank you, ma'am. With that, we stand adjourned. We'll see you in May. Thank you.